Chapter 405. 3 days from now, be ready to receive your glory at the conferring ceremony. I understand, Father. After the luncheon, List did not delay. He left Tulip Castle and set off for Flower Town. He drank a lot of wine and was slightly tipsy, but he could still stay sober. The chocobo Loki had recovered. Its soft feathers and wide back made List very comfortable to sit on. He spat out a mouthful of foul air and summoned the smoke mission. It was strange. He moved at high speed on the chocobo's back, but the smoke serpentines were fixed in front of him. Mission completed. Reward: decaying dragon bones recovery. After he saw the content of the reward, he unconsciously frowned. After a while, he stared at the smoke serpentines that had turned into a new mission. The Siren Acloids has accumulated a large number of magic problems that need to be solved urgently. These problems are related to her understanding of magic and the improvement of her own magic level. Please solve them. Reward: a Water Master Magician. His eyes were looking at the serpentines. His mind was thinking about the previous mission reward, decaying dragon bones recovery. He didn't know if it was because of the alcohol, but his brain was a little slow. It took a lot of effort to get into the right state. Dragon bones? Recovery? Decaying? Is this referring to the 5 dragon bones in the Black Horse Island's burial ground? The 5 decaying dragon bones in the burial ground had been exposed to the wind and the sun. List knew that they were definitely not ordinary, but he still couldn't figure out what was so extraordinary about them. Now it seemed that the 5 dragon bones were finally going to change. What does recovery mean? He pondered over the smoke mission reward, a little confused. According to the literal meaning, it should refer to the return of spring, the revival of all things, the recovery of the decaying dragon bones. Does it mean that these bones will come back to life like withered trees? The recovery of the dragon bones. Is it simply the recovery of the bones? Or a bold idea suddenly flashed in his mind. This fire dragon that has been dead for who knows how many years, will it also slowly recover with the recovery of the bones? Can a dragon come back to life? He had never heard of such a possibility. List thought of another possibility. Or maybe it's not that the fire dragon came back to life. Maybe it's the remnants of its magic, relying on the decaying dragon bones to give birth to a new fire dragon. He remembered a legend. At the end of their lives, the old dragons would leave the place where they lived and fly to the legendary Valley of Dragons, where they would sleep. Perhaps the reason why the dragons return to the Valley of Dragons after they grow old is to find a place to prepare for their resurrection. Because dragons had no gender and could not give birth, its birth had always been a mystery. That was why List had such a conjecture: resurrection, a cycle. After pondering for a long time, Xianxia was unable to come up with a better solution. He restrained himself from fantasizing too much. It's just the recovery of 5 bones. Don't simply associate it with dragons. Maybe the smoke mission only told me that fire dragon bones can be used to build ships. I haven't had the time to ask Virginia if she knows how to fix dragon bones. No more thinking about the dragon. The 5 fire dragon bones needed to be inspected after returning. His attention returned to the new smoke mission. The mission prompted Chi to accumulate a large number of magic problems that needed to be solved, and the reward was a water archmage. This was easy to understand. Chi was about to be promoted to a water archmage. Not bad. She did not disappoint me. Chi has become an archmage in less than half a year. Her talent is terrifying. In a few years, I'm afraid she really has hope of becoming a water archmage. The sun scorched the earth. The chocobos brought with them gusts of wind as they flew, keeping List cool. The tipsiness gradually dissipated under the constant wearing down of Chi, and his brain regained its vitality. When the sun was about to set, the Thorns Ridge, which was planted with dense iron thorns, was already in sight. And on the main gravel road, there was already a team waiting to greet him. When List discovered the team also discovered List and his party. Cheers immediately sounded. Even though they were several hundred meters away, they could still be clearly heard. They were shouting, "Sir Viscount!" The messenger retainer knight had already spread the news that List was about to be promoted to Viscount. One could imagine how excited and seething the fief's officials were under Gort's leadership. Everyone knew that List had a great future, but no one expected that he would become a Viscount in a year. Clop, clop, clop. The sound of hooves whistled as the team entered the main road of the Thorns Ridge. Sure enough, the people to greet him were the officials led by Gort, as well as a large number of fiefs residents. They crowded on the roadside, craning their necks in anticipation, wanting to catch a glimpse of the great Sir Lord. "Oh, the night is graced by glory. Incredible!" Gort shouted in his unique, exaggerated tone. "Great Lord, Viscount List. Sir, Gort, offer my highest respect to you." The fief's officials behind him greeted and complimented List's return with all kinds of greetings. The afterglow of the setting sun sprinkled on List's face, making his handsome and extraordinary figure even more imposing. A genial voice sounded. "I accept your greetings. Let's go back to the castle first." "Yes, sir." The group of people clustered around List and walked towards the castle. He was the focus of everyone's eyes. Loki was also the focus of attention. His colorful feathers and tall and slightly strange body made ordinary people marvel. In the world of Warcraft, people's aesthetic standards were not those of kittens or puppies. The stranger and more powerful the creature, the more crazily they would be pursued by humans. "This is Sir Lord. Such a terrifying giant bird is Sir Lord's mount." The townsfolk ran behind the team, whispering to each other as they ran. It may be mid-level world of Warcraft. Sir Lord's Dosin is mid-level world of Warcraft. Sir Lord also killed the mid-level sea monster, six-headed sea serpent king. The fief's residents nodded in agreement. Yes, it is not mid-level. Sir Lord doesn't care about it at all. Sir Lord is already a Viscount. Do you think North Valley City will be given to Sir Lord? I don't know. Maybe Sir Lord can have an island, just like Sir Viscount of Beer Island. Yes, when Sir Lord first came to Flower Town last year, I said that he was born a greater aristocrat and would obtain countless honors sooner or later. These whispers, List did not hear it. The officials around him were still flattering him, not knowing that he was not in the mood to listen to flattery at the moment. He just wanted to go back to the castle and drink a cup of fresh milk tea brewed by Mrs. Morrison. Mrs. Morrison must already be brewing milk tea. She knows that my favorite is milk tea brewed with dragon milk. Even if she forgets, Mr. Carter will remind her. After a year together, Carter, Morrison, and the other servants have become like family. Before List set foot on Dosin Avenue, he suddenly raised his head and looked ahead. Accompanied by a cry of wow, the familiar thorn fairy Ella flew up and down. When it saw List, it looked very happy and landed directly on List's head. Sprites are emotional creatures, and the existence of the contract made him closer to Ella. "Little fellow, did you demolish the castle?" List beckoned Ella to his palm and continued to ride the chocobo towards the castle. "Wow." Chapter 406. Ella stopped. List stopped the naughty Ella, and then pulled off the green thorn seedlings on Loki's head before the thorns could grow. The green light on his head was fleeting. Loki didn't know what was going on and shouted meaninglessly, "Cluck!" They continued to walk. Dosin Avenue was smoother, and on both sides of the road were more and more lush apple circles. Because they had just been transplanted this year, there were no apples. But the apple tree was covered with small green apples, and it was obvious that it had grown at least twice as big. The branches and leaves stretched out, propping up a shade. Tables, benches, and rocking chairs were neatly placed under the tree. "Woo, woo!" Ella flew to the apple tree, holding a green apple and shaking it. The apple did not fall to the ground, but it had obviously become Ella's plaything. It liked to fall on it and swing. Soon they came to the castle gate. Butler Carter was standing on both sides of the gate with all the servants of the castle, divided into men and women. Watching the tall and handsome List jump off the back of the chocobo, he immediately stepped forward and said in a familiar, thick steel voice, "Master, welcome home." Mrs. Morrison also smiled on behalf of the maid and said, "Master, welcome home." "Yes, we're home." He wanted to express his triumphant mood again, but a barking interrupted the atmosphere. 8 big dogs with shiny black fur rushed over like a swarm of bees and pounced on trembling Woods and List. Woof woof. It was the 8 little ones. After more than a month, the 8 blizzard beasts had grown a lot, exceeding the size of a large wolf dog. Woof woof. Trembling Woods had probably been separated for a long time, so it didn't like his sons that were pouncing on him. It barked a few times and drove them away. On the other side, it was Stupid Woman who came late, calling to Dosin, "Woof woof." Dosin immediately rushed over enthusiastically and mingled with Stupid Woman, wagging his tail. Now both Stupid Woman and the 8 little ones could move freely. Storm, flame, rock, wave, thunder, light, ice, shadow, get into formation. List ordered with a straight face. However, the 8 little ones only cared about playing and were indifferent to his orders. It even roared at Loki the Chocobo, attempting to attack the long-legged, long-necked, fat bird. Loki jumped around, avoiding the entanglement of the 8 little ones. Clatter, clatter. The scene was chaotic and chaotic. The triumphant atmosphere that had just been created was completely destroyed. The servants hurriedly came forward to stop the 8 little ones, but there were too many people today. The 8 little ones were a little too excited and couldn't be stopped. One of the waves even opened its mouth and released a rock spike to attack Loki. Loki was good at running, but not good at fighting, so he could only be beaten passively. Clatter. At the critical moment, List shouted with a gloomy face, "Dosin." Dosin instantly abandoned Stupid Woman and rushed over. "Woof woof. Press down these 8 mad dogs for me." List made a subduing gesture and with a command, immediately let Dosin understand what he needed to do. Turning around, Trembling Woods swiftly and violently attacked. Waves, who was the loudest, was sent tumbling by a slap from Trembling Woods. After it stopped, it lay on the ground, whimpering and not daring to move. After subduing the wave, Dosin continued to violently subdue the rock, light, and ice. Finally, the 8 little ones were obedient. They all lay on the ground and did not dare to move. They were still obedient to Dosin. This was a blood relationship and fear of the strong of the same kind. "Come, tie up these 8 mad dogs, plus Stupid Woman, and tie them to their respective kennels." List was a little angry. More than a month without training, it's a complete mess. It seems that the castle has suffered a lot from them during this time. Mr. Carter, has anyone been injured because of them? After all, it is World of Warcraft. Once it goes crazy, it is difficult to control. When he first went on the expedition, List thought that his training was effective and that the 8 little ones would only listen to the servants who raised them. Now it seems that this is not the case. Mr. Carter sighed. "Today is the day of your triumphant return. I didn't expect to report these things. In fact, in the second week of your expedition, the 8 little blizzard beasts were a little restless. In the next 2 weeks, they learned to release rock thorns one after another, and it was difficult to manage them. As a result, the 8 blizzard beasts were kept in the kennel and never released. But they successfully escaped a few days ago and began to plunder with the castle as the center. Yesterday, they even rushed to the residential area of the town and injured several people. Barton, the coachman, was pierced in the calf by a rock thorn. Although he survived, one of his legs was disabled for life. Several members of the town patrol were also injured and disabled. If it weren't for the magician Chris Truth, more people might have been injured. It's my mistake." List exhaled. "Do a good job of compensating Barton and the injured patrol members. Don't be stingy. Make a list of the losses caused by the blizzard beasts outside the castle, and all of them will be directly compensated by the castle. In addition, build a separate shack for Loki." "Yes, my lord." He turned again and said to Gort and other officials, "I am sleepy today. The dinner will be held as usual, and there will be no official business. You will sort out the official business of Flower Town and report to me in detail tomorrow. In addition, prepare to raise 4,000 gold coins, which I urgently need. 3 days later, it will be the day when he is promoted to Viscount. From Viscount onwards, he officially enters the ranks of middle-level nobles. At this time, the finances between the castle and the territory need to be gradually separated to prevent confusion in the accounts, because Viscounts have the power to infect nobles, which is equivalent to establishing a simple bureaucratic system." Gort responded, As you wish, my lord. Then disperse. I will have a feast with you at the dinner and talk about the Battle of Ironhoof Island. List sent everyone away directly. He was ready to put aside all the troubles and have a good rest. After making sure that all the blizzard beasts were locked in the kennel and that Loki had adapted to the new environment, he walked into the castle. Mrs. Mawson handed him the milk tea that had been brewed. He drank it all in one gulp. The familiar taste, the familiar feeling quickly calmed his depression because of the rebellion of the 8 little ones. He had planned to hide in the study and use meditation to adapt to life back in Flower Town. But he soon remembered that he had not yet gone to visit the siren, Chi, to complete his task. So he rode Loki and quickly ran to the sea. The seaside villa had always been taken care of. He went into the room and blew the horn. There was no response for a long time. Chi was probably not around here and may have gone to other places. Come back at night. Unable to find Chi, List went straight to the magic workshop. His potions had run out, and now he needed to replenish them. Otherwise, he would interrupt the process of taking potions. Although it was not a big problem to interrupt for a period of time, he still hoped that the path of cultivation would be perfect. Sir Baron, congratulations on your triumphant return. The host of the magic workshop, Chris Truth, has become accustomed to life in Flower Town. The delicious food is very rich, and she has grown a little fatter. Chapter 407. From the magic workshop, List took out the potions that he had recently hoarded and went back to take more potions. The castle kitchen was busy preparing for the banquet. Butler Carter was ready to report on the recent work, but List refused. Let's talk tomorrow. I don't want to talk about work today. He was not a workaholic. After fighting for more than a month, he just wanted to relax. Let Mrs. Morrison make me another cup of milk tea. I'm going to rest in the study for a while. If last year's saltpeter can still be used, make some frozen juice. If it can't be used, take some crushed ice from the ice house. Yes, master. A moment later, the milk tea was brought over. As for the frozen juice, it would take some time to make. Liz suddenly asked, "Is Mr. Elkson in Flower Town?" Mr. Elkson came once a week. If you want, you can inform the caravan to convey the news of your return. Inform him for me. Okay. When the frozen juice was also brought over, List closed the door of the study and tasted the frozen juice to get rid of the heat. It was already July, the hottest month of the year. Without ice, life would be full of helplessness. He sat in the rocking chair, rocked, and let his thoughts drift. But soon he felt bored. From the gem space, he took out the soul storage jar that looked like a teapot. Virginia Truth has been awake for a long time. I've been busy with the war and haven't had time to talk to her again. Now that he had free time, he wanted to talk to Virginia and ask her to give him the keel technique. Tilting the teapot, a wisp of smoke was poured out, and in a blink of an eye, it formed a human upper body. It was Virginia Truth, the majestic 36D ghost that he had seen before. We meet again, Virginia. Should I call you Miss Virginia or Your Excellency Virginia? Liz said as he looked at Virginia's eyes that were gradually becoming clearer. It seems that I had a long, long dream. Sir, you already know my identity. I am a magician of the goat family, Virginia Truth. I died in an accident. Virginia bowed slightly and looked at her body. Was I sealed in the keel, anchorage? Yes, I fished you out of the wreck of a Dragon Bee sailboat, Liz said. Virginia nodded and said calmly, I remember now. It was Curtis Truth who killed me. After that, I lost my memory, but I think Curtis Truth used some evil method to extract my soul and seal it in the keel anchorage. Thank you for releasing me from my slumber, sir. Liz smiled. My name is List Tulip, Baron of Flower Town, and I am about to become Viscount of Black Horse Island. Viscount List. How is the magic goat family? My sister, Curtis Truth, have you heard of her? She should have unified the goat gathering. How is His Highness Annette Sapphire? Virginia asked. She probably thought that she had just died. List coughed. List didn't have the heart to tell the poor lady what happened to her, but there was no point in lying. He said, the magic goat family, about 100 years ago, was annihilated by the third-generation Sapphire Grand Duke because they participated in the palace coup. What? The magician made of smoke and light trembled, and the light flickered. Just when Liz thought she was going to faint again and retract into the soul storage, her body finally stabilized, but her tone was still uncertain. More than 100 years ago, Viscount List, are you lying to me? I don't need to lie to you. You're just a remnant soul living in my soul storage. In fact, I'm not very curious about what happened more than 100 years ago. The Magic Goat family is like a ship sinking into the sea. If it wasn't for the sudden collision, no one would have known about this family. More than 100 years. No one remembers this. Virginia took a few deep breaths. Even in the soul state, he could still clearly see the violent rise and fall of her chest. I'm sorry, Viscount List, I lost my composure. I didn't know I had been sleeping for 100 years. It's okay. Can you tell me what happened to the Magic Goat family? If you know about it, can you tell me? This request was not too much, and Virginia, in the soul state, was also a good person to talk to. He could talk about the past with her, and after familiarizing himself with her, he could get the dragon bone technique. In order to help His Highness Annette, your sister Curtis and Marquis Cohen decided to seize the life of the Dragon Gem Dragon. They wanted to turn His Highness Annette into the Dragon Lord. Yes, but it was all in vain. The second-generation Grand Duke found out and personally destroyed the Magic Goat family. The second-generation Grand Duke was also injured in the battle and abdicated to the third-generation Grand Duke Annette. By the way, is Annette Annette's brother or younger brother? Younger brother. The third-generation Grand Duke banished Annette's soul. Your sister probably escaped. She did not take revenge, but studied lich experiments and finally transformed herself into a lich. She sacrificed a large number of lives of magicians and civilians to turn the goat into a ghost ship and sail to the land of exile. Lich, ghost ship, land of exile. Virginia muttered to herself. She is really a terrible woman. Because of her own love, the whole family was buried with her. This is just some superficial information that I know. Then, as Curtis' sister, can you tell me about the situation in that era? Virginia nodded, her eyes immersed in reminiscence. After a while, she slowly opened her mouth and told the story of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire more than 100 years ago. It was a prosperous era. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire was booming in the development of sea transportation, and the Magic Goat family also followed the trend. After the Sapphire family developed the three-masted sailboat technology, the Magic Goat family developed the Dragon Bone technique and gave birth to the Goat Assembly, a magician organization. The original purpose of the Goat Assembly was to train magicians for the family and participate in the production of dragon sailboats. My father was Cohen Magic Goat, the Grand Duchy's Marquis. Curtis was my cousin. She grew up with me. Her magic talent was the pride of the family. At the age of 16, she had become a great magician. Her love with Royal Highness Annette was blessed by everyone. Virginia's voice was low and erratic, and I was just an inconspicuous member of the family. Marriage and shipbuilding were probably all my life. I never left the city of thousand sails. I grew up there, lived there, worked there, and studied magic. That was my happiest time until one day Curtis came. She asked all of us to stop what we were doing and cooperate with her in some cruel experiments. She wanted us to secretly study the Sapphire Dragon. We didn't want to, so my teacher expelled her from the Goat Assembly. She massacred those who disobeyed. I can't imagine that she would do anything to me. Then, and that was the end of Virginia's story. She was dead. So, you know the Dragon Bone technique? List asked. Chapter 408. Then List hesitated. He planned to ask about the keel fixing technique after getting familiar with her, but he felt that the other party was just a remnant soul in his hands. There was no need to be so complicated. Therefore, he paused and said directly, "Can you give me the keel fixing technique?" Virginia was stunned for a moment. Yes, but Viscount List, more than 100 years have passed. Has the keel fixing technique not been popularized? I remember that my family had already exchanged technology with the Sapphire family. We obtained the three-masted sailboat manufacturing technology, and the Sapphire family obtained the keel fixing technique. Has there been an exchange of technology? List was a little surprised by her straightforwardness. I'm not very clear. I know very little about the shipbuilding technology that the Sapphire family has mastered. However, I hope to have my own technical reserves to build a dragon-shaped sailboat in the future. Thank you for giving me the keel fixing technique. It's nothing. I should thank you for releasing me from oblivion so that I could get a moment of freedom. It's just a pity that things remain the same, but people have changed. The Magic Goat family has disappeared for more than 100 years. What are you going to do next? I don't know. The atmosphere was a little silent. The sorcerer made of smoke and light had a lifelike expression of confusion. For the memory she had just been killed by Curtis, and her thoughts were still in the era of money more than 100 years ago. But the reality was that the Magic Goat family had disappeared, and she had become a lonely remnant soul. In this world, none of the people she knew existed. The strong contrast made her confused and at a loss. List also did not know how to comfort her. He asked, how does it feel to live in a soul storage tank? He was ready to use a research attitude to resolve the awkward atmosphere. It just so happened that he also wanted to know what kind of situation Virginia was in the soul state. The independent existence of the soul, in the eyes of the list before the time travel, was absolutely impossible, but now he had to accept this fact and improve his knowledge. The physical rules of this world were very different from the physical rules of Earth. Virginia woke up from her confusion, thought for a moment, and replied, "It's like falling asleep. There seems to be a lot of dreams that keep appearing, but after coming out, I can't remember anything." List could not understand what kind of state this was, but he had a basic understanding. It was probably entering a state similar to hibernation. He then asked, "Then how long can you stay outside in your current soul state?" "I can probably stay a little longer. I don't feel tired yet. How about this? For the time being, you will be my personal magic consultant. I will keep you by my side. If you have the chance, you can see the outside world. You will have a lot of time to think about the future of your life. After all, you will probably be living like this for a long time." "I see." Virginia did not refuse. "Thank you, Viscount List." List smiled and asked again, "In this state, can you touch objects that exist in reality, such as this book? Can you open it?" Virginia was currently hovering above the desk. She bent down and read the night novel titled The Mad Swordsman Samet Sunflower. He slowly reached out and touched the book. However, her hands could not really touch anything. I don't think I can do it. How about using your spiritual power?" List suggested. He remembered that ghosts could attack people. Since they could attack humans, it meant that they still had the ability to touch objects. In addition, whether it was Lich Curtis Truth or Lich Andy Sapphire, they were similar to souls, but they could control objects. He did not know what was the difference between the current Virginia and the Lich, and why her soul could exist while the souls of other dead people could not. These were all his future research topics. If he had the time, energy, and strength, he would figure it all out. Listening to Liz's suggestion, Virginia began to use her spiritual power to try to open the book. Mages would train their spiritual power. They might not necessarily have a big advantage over a knight. After all, a knight also trained his mind to control the circulation of combat energy every day, but compared to an ordinary mage, his spiritual power was much stronger. At first, Virginia stared for a long time, but the night novel did not move at all. However, as Virginia's body began to shine, the night novel flipped from beginning to end like a strong wind. The other night novels on the table also flipped the pages. However, it only lasted for less than 10 seconds before the power disappeared, and everything returned to normal. Virginia's face showed a tired expression, and she gasped, "Viscount List, I feel very tired. I can't hold on any longer. Your spiritual control needs to be trained. After training, you should be able to control some objects with your mind." Liz commented, and then said, "Since you are tired, go into the soul storage tank and rest. By the way, can you come out of the soul storage tank by yourself? I don't think I can do it. After I go in, I feel like I'm asleep and can't do anything." Oh, watching Virginia turn into smoke again and shrink into the soul storage tank, List was very satisfied with the effect of this special magic equipment, especially the effect that the soul could not come out by itself. He put into the gem space. The dinner party began immediately. The atmosphere of the dinner party was quite warm. In the dining hall on the first floor, the town officials, the members of the night squad, Paris, and Chris were all present. The plot was the same as in Tulip Castle. First, they mourned the death of the two Earth Knights, and then they drank wine and boasted to each other. The members of the night squad who participated in the battle were all in high spirits, bragging about their performance on the battlefield, such as piercing 4 enemies with a long spear, killing the elite soldiers with a spear, breaking the big sword with a long spear, and shooting the enemy's throat with an arrow in the midst of the chaos. Of course, when these Earth Knights were bragging about themselves, they did not forget to flatter List's performance on the battlefield. His Excellency is invincible. His Excellency rode a chocobo with a blizzard beast no one dared to charge. Like a light, His Excellency guides us forward. List sipped his beer lightly and did not speak much. He never liked to be too active at banquets. In Tulip Castle, many nobles kept toasting, and it was difficult not to respond. Here, he was the only lord, and everyone else was a follower, so he could reduce the number of times he drank. Or, like most leaders, he could take a sip. The banquet lasted until 11 o'clock in the evening. After the banquet, List told the butler Carter and left the castle directly to the sea. Chapter 409. The Sea View Villa is equipped with crystal lamps, which List set up to make it easier for the siren Chi to read books. When he came to the Sea View Villa and opened the door, he clearly smelled a faint fragrance in the room, which was the familiar body fragrance of a Chi. However, there was no Chi in the room. She must have thought that the arrival of List was a castle servant who came to clean the room and hid. List stood in front of the window and blew a small horn. In a moment, using magic eyes, he saw a huge shell swimming from the sea into the room on the first floor. Then the shell opened a gap, and after seeing List standing at the top of the stairs, it quickly opened, revealing a Chi wrapped in water ribbons. The siren was still so beautiful and lively. "Brother!" a Chi shouted excitedly, and the shell carried her directly to the top of the stairs and threw herself into List's arms. A Chi misses brother so much. With the soft jade in his arms, List only felt that he was holding a large elf, and her full chest was squeezed. Even with the obstruction of the water ribbons and soaking his clothes, he could still feel the suffocating pressure. He couldn't help but hug Chi a little tighter and carried her back to the study. After a while, Chi let go of her hands, restrained her excitement, blinked her big eyes, and looked at List with a smile. "Long time no see, Chi." "Well, Chi looks forward to brother coming back every day. Does brother also think of Chi every day?" "Of course I think of Chi every day. Chi is so cute." List rubbed her blue hair, and she immediately, like a kitten, burrowed into List's arms and sat in a chair with him. In other words, List sat in a chair, and Chi sat in his arms. A petite figure of, at most, 1.55 meters, in the arms of List, who was more than 1.85 meters tall. She really looked like a kitten. However, although Chi was petite, her figure was exquisite and curvy, which made people can't help but have wild thoughts. List could not help but feel a little hot. Chi is just a siren who doesn't understand human emotions. She's not an adult yet, so I shouldn't let my imagination run wild. Even though it was hard for him not to think of some scenes that made his mouth dry up while they were hugging each other, he still restrained his impulse. He told Chi some interesting stories about the Battle of Iron Hoof Island, bragging about his brilliance and martial prowess. "Chi, how's your progress in magic while I'm away?" he asked. Chi has already completely mastered the water magic of the magician's stage. Water arrow volley, water wheel wall, water bullet, water whirlpool, and water spring can be instantly released. However, the water wave shield that only great magicians can master, Chi still hasn't been able to release it. Chi said with some annoyance. The water wave shield was provided by Chris Truth. Although she was not a great magician, she had a great magician teacher, so she had mastered several high-level magic casting methods. Naturally, List effortlessly obtained the casting plan and handed it over to Qi. "Tell me all the difficulties you've encountered, and I'll ask other magicians," said List. At present, the town not only had Chris, the magician of the Goat Gathering, but also Virginia Truth, the private magic consultant. A magician from the Magic Goat family should know a lot. Qi left List's arms, took out a book from the cabinet in the study, and handed it to List. "Brother, write down all the questions I don't understand in this notebook." Taking the notebook, List flipped through it. The handwriting in the first half was crooked and ugly, but the handwriting in the second half was more and more beautiful, and there were many special magic symbols. It had to be said that Qi's magic talent was outstanding, and so was her drawing talent. "I'll ask other magicians and help you answer them as soon as possible." Putting away the notebook that he couldn't understand, List asked again, "Qi, where's Nami? Isn't she with you?" Nami was a mangrove elf. Qi said with a smile, "Nami is on Mangrove Island. Mangrove Island has hatched a lot of ducklings. Nami likes those ducklings very much. She catches green caterpillars to feed the ducklings every day and sleeps with them." "How many adult mallards are there on Mangrove Island? And how many hatched ducklings are there?" "There are 25 adult ducks and 44 hatched ducklings. There are still many duck eggs that haven't hatched yet." Hearing so many, List's heart was burning. Mallards were low-level World of Warcraft, and they were the source of a large amount of World of Warcraft meat. Won't those mallards attack Nami? Not at all. The adult ducks just look for green caterpillars on Mangrove Island to eat. They don't care about their eggs and hatched ducklings. It's Nami who feeds the ducklings. "Those eggs, were they hatched by adult mallards?" Qi shook her head. "No, they split open by themselves after being exposed to the sun. World of Warcraft mallards were obviously not ordinary ducks and didn't need to be hatched. Do they only eat green caterpillars? They also go to the beach to eat shrimps and crabs. They also eat mangrove leaves and small wild fruits." After listening to Qi's detailed description, List basically understood that mallards were an omnivorous low-level World of Warcraft that could be raised. Artificial breeding was very feasible, but at the same time, artificial breeding of green caterpillars was also needed. It was the green caterpillars that attracted the mallards to settle here. Of course, the breeding technique would definitely take a long time to figure out. After all, it was World of Warcraft that could spit water arrows, which was very dangerous. "So Qi, do you often go to the atoll? Did you find any bigger, giant clams in the Black Pearl Lake?" List asked again. The atoll was the coral reef that disappeared during high tide. The enclosed sea was called the Black Pearl Lake. Naturally, the giant clams that produced black pearls were called black pearl giant clams. "I often go to play, but there are no bigger, giant clams in the Black Pearl Lake. When they open their mouths, I have checked them one by one. There are no black pearls that are too big. They are much smaller than the black pearl that brother gave Qi." Qi magically took out a black pearl the size of a fist. She held the black pearl and said, "Qi has been practicing the construction of magic circles with black pearls every day recently." "Very good. In addition to learning how to cast magic, you could try to study magic circles. In the future, you can not only fight, but also produce potions and make magic equipment." Yes. It was already midnight when he left the Sea View Villa. He was going to give Qi's magic notebook to Chris to answer, but looking at the time, he decided not to disturb her. Maybe she was already asleep. Early the next morning, he sent a servant to give the magic notebook to Chris. "Tell Chris to try to finish the answers as soon as possible. If there are parts that she can't answer, just skip them." If she couldn't answer, List would ask Virginia. Later, he was eating breakfast while listening to the butler Carter's report on what happened in the castle this month. There were no problems that he needed to deal with, so he could skip them. After breakfast, he gathered Marcus and the other knight, plus Consultant Gort, and set off for Black Horse Island by boat. Black Horse Island could be announced to the public, but first, it was necessary to welcome the court messengers and Tulip Castle messengers to measure the area to ensure that it was suitable for the Viscount's fief island. Chapter 410. Boneyard, in the afternoon. List walked between the 5 huge dragon bones, constantly using magic eyes to observe the magic feedback of the 5 bones. There was no sign of magic power. The so-called recovery of dragon bones in the smoke mission did not show anything, and the 5 decayed dragon bones were still the same. He dispersed the magic eyes and observed the dragon bones with his naked eyes. Judging from a geography of Black Horse Island, the boneyard is located between the Ice Grass Hill and the Needle Grass Hill, roughly due east of the island. If the first keel next to me is the starting point of the coordinate system, 0, 0, the east is the x-axis, the north is the y-axis, and 20 meters is a scale. Then the second keel is located at -2, 3. The third keel is located at 4, 5. The fourth keel is located at 8, 3. The fifth keel is located at 11, 4. And the first and second are the closest, reaching 72 meters. List described the coordinate system on the thick bass paper while inspecting. The 5 keel bones located in the coordinate system can roughly be connected into a pentagon in the shape of a sword blade. Is there any special reason for this shape or this bone division? Or is it because the volcano erupted randomly and the bones were randomly scattered to these 5 points? It seemed that it was just a random scattering. There was no special reason. He put away the thick bass paper and climbed to the top of the first keel. The fracture had been weathered into a flat, horizontal surface. Originally, there was soil and weeds on it, but now the weeds have been cleaned up, revealing the fine lines of the keel itself. According to the general bones, the bones are hollow, but the dragon bones are not hollow. In other words, the bone marrow inside its bones has been filled with something. List squatted on the cross-section and observed carefully. He could see a dividing line between the bone and the bone marrow, like the rings of a book. The dragon bones have not fossilized. They're still bones, including a large number of broken bones that were previously transported to Flower Town. They are real bones. Those bone fragments, there is no substance evolved from the bone marrow. What has the bone marrow of these 5 dragon bones become? He wanted to chisel a little bit to study, but the keel was so strong that he could not chisel a hole at all, and what was even more strange was that the echo seemed a little too loud. He stopped, and the echo disappeared instantly. He chiseled the bone hard, and the echo surged. Something's wrong. He immediately cast magic eyes and looked around, but there was no sign of magic. He then chiseled on the bone again. This time, along with the surging echo, the dragon bone under his feet flashed with magical patterns like lightning, fiery red magical power, like veins densely covering the inside of the dragon bone, flashed. There's a situation. He used chisel again to get a clearer look. The fiery red magic power inside the dragon bone flashed. Some were thick, some were thin, and others were intertwined. He turned his head and looked at dragon bone number 2 not far away. When he chiseled it again, a large number of fiery red threads flashed across the surface of the dragon bone as well. He then looked at the 3, 4, and 5 dragon bones in the distance. Every time he chiseled the first dragon bone, the red magic threads would also flash. The echo was amplified. Moreover, as List continued to chisel, these fiery red threads flickered brighter and brighter, as if they would ignite at any time. For some reason, he recalled the feeling of shaking the handle of a tractor when he was young. As the speed of the handle rotation increased, the degree of ignition of the cylinder would be greater, and eventually, accompanied by a burst of black smoke, the tractor would ignite successfully. So, the chisel in his hand was like a needle on a sewing machine, constantly chiseling on the dragon bone. In the vision of magic eyes, the fiery red magic threads were getting brighter and brighter, and in the end, they almost ignited. The temperature of the surrounding air was also getting higher. Just a little more effort, and I can ignite these 5 dragon bones. His heart was full of excitement, and his hand sped up. However, just as the flame was about to ignite, the chisel made of fine steel snapped. The fiery red threads on the dragon bone were instantly extinguished. All his efforts were in vain. Restraining his depressed mood, List took out a bone hammer made of broken dragon bones from the gem space and continued to hammer the bones. However, when he broke the bone hammer, The dragon bone still could not be ignited. There must be something missing. Is it the lack of fire dragon magic? He stopped hammering and sat on the dragon bone to think. His wrists were sore and numb, and he had to rest. After resting, he took out the Fire Dragon Caniston edition to supplying the Fire Dragon brick factory. There was still a lot of Fire Dragon magic that had not been put to use. He released a little Fire Dragon magic on the dragon bone. Soon, when the Fire Dragon magic touched the dragon bone, it instantly turned into countless fiery red magic threads, which were swallowed by the dragon bone. When the fiery red threads disappeared, there was no more magic flying out of the small fire dragon. After looking at it for a long time, List was sure of one thing. My precious fire dragon magic, just like that, lost? Unwilling, he took out another bone knife and continued to knock on the dragon bone. However, it was the same result as before. The fiery red threads became brighter and brighter until the bone knife broke and still did not ignite the fire dragon magic. Is this for me to continue to pour fire dragon magic into it? Obviously, the fire dragon bone lacked a kind of fuel, just like a tractor lacking oil. No matter how hard you try to shake a tractor without oil, it is impossible to ignite successfully. But List was a little reluctant to let the fire dragon magic be used as fuel for these 5 unknown fire dragon bones. After all, the use of fire dragon magic is too great. At present, the Fire Dragon Brick Factory relies entirely on the Fire Dragon magic to work, and the raw material ratio of slates, culverts, and pottery has been figured out. Finished products can be fired. The culverts and slates of the Fire Dragon Brick Factory have directly increased the construction speed of Black Horse Island by a large margin. At present, the streets of the port town have been paved with a layer of slate, and the sewer has been buried with culverts. It is clean and unobstructed, and there is no trace of the backwardness and primitive that an ordinary town should have. Once he leaves the Fire Dragon Brick Factory, the smell of backwardness will hit him. The Fire Dragon Brick Factory is a rare industrial light in my territory. In any case, I must ensure its good operation. The Fire Dragon magic in stock can barely be used to add fuel. In addition, we can continue to mine underground volcanic glass to extract new Fire Dragon magic. At this moment, he made a decision to clean up the land and mine all the volcanic glass and Fire Dragon magic before Black Horse Island has been developed. The entire underground of the island is filled with basalt pillars, and there's a lot of volcanic glass in the cracks, which should be able to mine a lot of Fire Dragon magic. Is it enough to ignite 5 dragon bones? He looked at the dragon bones in front of him and directly released all the remaining Fire Dragon magic. When the magic was quickly absorbed by the Fire Dragon bone, he knocked it for the last time. Unfortunately, the result was still a failure, and the magic could not be ignited. Anyway, the 5 Fire Dragon bones have obviously recovered. The next step is to continuously mine the Fire Dragon magic and add fuel to them. When it is really ignited, what will it give birth to? Will it really be a Fire Dragon cub? Liz swallowed and felt his heart beat faster. Chapter 411. Igniting the Fire Dragon bone seemed to be a huge project. List even wondered if all the Fire Dragon magic on Black Horse Island could be collected to complete the ignition. I hope that with the help of the smoke mission, it will be possible to ignite it. But the mining of the Fire Dragon magic has to be postponed. At this stage, he does not have enough serfs to arrange production. When the construction of Black Horse Island begins, there will definitely be a huge labor shortage. After taking one last look at the Fire Dragon bone, List returned to Port Town. Because he needed to attend the ceremony the day after tomorrow, he did not have time to stay on Black Horse Island. He had to return to Flower Town tomorrow. At night in Port Town, a brief meeting was held. Measuring the island is just measuring the periphery of the island, but the court messengers and the Tulip Castle messengers will definitely land on Black Horse Island and stay in Port Town for a few days. So confidentiality must be done well. Advisor Gort, how did you arrange it? List asked. My lord, there are 4 places worth paying attention to on Black Horse Island. One is the black blood horses on the grassland, which must be strictly guarded to prevent being discovered. Gort reported, The second is the bones of the boneyard. No matter what kind of creature it is, it will eventually attract attention if it is discovered. The third is the fire dragon brick factory. The slates, culverts, and pottery formulas must be strictly guarded. The last is the rubber garden. Rubber is too important. List looked at Carl Hammerstein. Carl immediately stood up and reported, "At present, the patrols have completed their training and completed the patrol layout of Port Town and Black Horse Harbor. When the messengers are stationed on Black Horse Island, I will send patrols to monitor them all day to prevent them from leaving Port Town and Black Horse Harbor." "Very well, that's what we need to do. Black Horse Island is my territory. They can measure the area, but they can't step an inch inside." Gord asked, "My lord, what if they want to hunt here or see the scenery?" "Tell them that if they want to hunt, go to Coral Island. There is no prey and no scenery on Black Horse Island." List thought for a moment and said, "You can give some gold coins to the court messengers in private and ask them to calculate the area of Black Horse Island as small as possible when they measure the island." On paper, the size of the island was linked to the number of battle merits. The size of the island naturally meant that more battle merits were needed, while a smaller island would have fewer battle merits. In fact, it doesn't matter whether Black Horse Island is big or small, it is List's fief. Therefore, he hoped that the calculation could be smaller. For example, a 1 million yuan house could be reduced to 800,000 yuan with the size contract. The house would still be the same, and the owner would still be paid the same amount of money. However, the taxes would be much lower. After the issue of confidentiality was settled, List asked again, "Apart from the wheat sprite worm that I just contracted, are there no other sprite worms?" After he returned to the flower town, he immediately contracted the plump wheat sprite worm and then placed the barley sprite worm in the barley settlement. The 19 sprite worms had settled down comfortably. According to the frequency of sprite worms rewarded before the smoke mission, at least 1 or 2 sprite worms could have been bred during this month of expedition. Gort spread his hands. "Sir, the glory of the night has infinitely favored Flower Town and Black Horse Island. We found that the number of sprite worms far exceeds that of any place on Coral Island. In more than a month, there have been no signs of new sprite worms being bred." The next morning, the east was just beginning to turn white. List took the rubber worm triplets to the rubber garden to release the power of the 3 phases to restore the rubber trees that had a lot of rubber cut off. After releasing the power of the 3 phases several times, the rubber worms did not show any obvious growth weakness. On the contrary, every time they recovered from fatigue, they seemed more energetic. This seemed to prove that the release of the unique magic of the sprites would not affect their growth and evolution. Later, before the sun rose, aboard the flower, he set off for Mangrove Island. He was going to the mangrove forest to investigate the caterpillars and mallards. The ship quickly sailed to the edge of Mangrove Island. The summer heat was the peak season for plants, and the mangrove forest was denser than before. Many seabirds could be seen flying around Mangrove Island or nesting in the canopy of the mangrove forest. "Put down the boat," Captain Costo shouted. The sailors immediately put down the sampans and hung down the ropes so that they could slide along the ropes to the sampans. These sampans were small wooden boats made of rubber bonded with thorny ironwood. They were very strong and could be used for fishing offshore. It was a product that List was going to promote. The first step to facing the sea was to conquer the coastal waters and develop the fishery. Combined with keel-fixing technology and the unborn schooner technology, sooner or later he would build an ocean-going fishery fleet that could catch whales and even sea monsters. At this time, he slid along the rope to the sampans and quickly rowed to the mangrove forest, alarming a large group of seabirds. List was always paying attention to the depths of the mangrove forest, and soon he saw the caterpillar rewarded by the smoke mission. It was a fat, cyan worm the length of a finger and covered with curly hair. At a glance, he could see that the cyan hair was a bit similar to animal fur. "Put on gloves, catch this caterpillar, and feel its hair," List ordered the sailor who was rowing the boat. The sailor immediately stretched out his arm and caught the caterpillar on a mangrove branch. Sir Lord, it feels very soft, green hair. It feels very comfortable. He simply took off his gloves and touched it with his skin. After touching it, he said that it was comfortable. It was soft like the fur of a kitten or puppy. List nodded and then ordered, collect a batch of caterpillars and go back to study their nutritional value and the value of the green hair. Then he continued to row into the depths of the mangrove forest. The mangrove forest had a well-developed root system with intertwined roots. Fortunately, there were still some waterways left. Leaning down on the sampans, they could barely pass through. After several twists and turns, when the sun rose in the east, List finally set foot on the ground of Mangrove Island. The ground was soft silt, obviously often washed by the waves. Many newly grown mangrove seedlings could be seen. Not only mangroves, but also many other species. Although they belonged to different families, they all grew together in similar conditions, forming this mangrove forest. These trees are really strange. Not only are their roots strange, but their flowers are even stranger. Marcus broke off a branch and handed it to List. Sir, please look. Its flowers look like this, like a stick. List took the branch and quickly remembered some knowledge about mangroves. This is not its flower, but its seedling. The seed has grown into a seedling. Once it falls, it will immediately grow into a new mangrove. Seedling? A seedling growing on a tree? Marcus was a little incredulous. Mangroves live by the sea. If the seed does not germinate on the tree, it will soon be washed away by the waves. However, after it grows on the tree, as long as it touches the mud, it will quickly take root and prevent it from being washed away by the waves. This may be the reason why the mangrove forest can continue to reproduce. A brief explanation. List threw away the branch. He mainly came to pick up duck eggs and see the mallard ducks. He also wanted to find a mangrove sprite's worm stalk. Maybe he could see Nami, now that he was confirmed as the Viscount of Black Horse Island. If he announced the appearance of Sprite, there would be another wave of flattery like Knight's Glory, although Nami felt useless now. Just then. Chapter 412. It was a mallard. It was a very fat mallard. Its gray body was about the size of a wolf dog, and its head was covered with shiny green hair. It did not fly, but wobbled on the mud and walked towards the shore from the island. My lord, it is a very fat wild duck. Marcus quietly took his bow and arrows and prepared to hunt. Take it to the ship, grease it, and roast it. It can change the taste. After unknowingly being influenced by the castle, he also became one of those who loved food. List reached out to stop Marcus. This is not a wild duck. It is a low-level world of Warcraft mallard that can release water arrows. Observe for a while and see how many mallards there are on the island. Low-level world of Warcraft? Marcus raised his eyebrows and became more cautious. Perhaps low-level world of Warcraft was nothing to a well-equipped, elite Earth Knight like List, but it was still a threat to a heroic Earth Knight like him. This mallard lived leisurely on Mangrove Island for more than a month without encountering any danger. Its vigilance was greatly reduced, and it leisurely looked for food. It seemed to see a green caterpillar on a branch of a mangrove tree. It opened its mouth and spat out a water arrow, accurately shooting the green caterpillar. The green caterpillar was shot down by the water arrow. It slowly walked over and opened its mouth to bite the green caterpillar. The flat mouth quickly trembled a few times and spat out the green caterpillar. To be precise, it spat out the green hair of the green caterpillar. It only ate the meat of the green caterpillar. After eating one, it wandered into the distance to look for new green caterpillars. List walked out from behind the hidden mangrove tree. It's a good thing that a mallard duck has come to Mangrove Island. Let's look for the duck eggs laid by the mallard duck. This world of Warcraft doesn't like to make nests, so duck eggs are thrown everywhere. Before he finished speaking, Marcus shouted, "My lord, there's an egg here." The light green egg was estimated to be 3 times the size of an ordinary duck egg. List cast magic eyes and could see the light blue magic power flowing inside. There was no doubt that this was a fresh green duck egg. It took an hour. The group of people roughly searched Mangrove Island. Not only did they find 20 green-feathered duck eggs, but they also found several fat green-feathered ducks. However, List did not know where the 40 or so ducklings that had hatched were. They were probably hidden by the mangrove elf, Nami. When List found the mangrove wormgrass, he saw Nami. Nami hid in the mangrove and did not greet List. She was probably a little afraid of List's Squire Knight. Therefore, List did not force it to show itself. Elves were family heirlooms, so there was no need to tell others about them. Hold the green duck egg carefully. Let's go back. List takes a special look at Nami's mangrove wormgrass. He feels that it is just an ordinary mangrove, useless. So he did not care too much and returned directly to the flowers. Enough samples have been collected to try to raise green caterpillars and mallard ducks in Flower Town. When the technology is fully mastered, the scale of breeding on Black Horse Island can be expanded. The mallard duck will definitely become a highly valuable magical beast industry in List's hands. On the ship, List ordered the Squire Knight to pad the duck eggs with cloth and lay them flat on the deck so that the sun can constantly shine on them, so as not to delay their hatching. Consulting Gort, the green caterpillar and mallard breeding techniques should be figured out as soon as possible. As you wish. I brought back 7 craftsmen. You should also arrange for them as soon as possible. List remembered that he had asked Marcus to go to Main City to search for craftsmen, then send them directly to the seaside and sneak into the fleet. There were a total of 7 craftsmen and their families. Originally, he planned to continue to search for craftsmen, but unfortunately, he was stopped by the Count. He did not want to lose sight of the bigger picture, so he could only bring back these 7 craftsmen. Fred Wellbore's work is easy to arrange. I will configure a special drilling team for him. Gort said with some excitement. His arrival is very important to Black Horse Island. It is difficult to get water from the port town. The water in the nearby river is too small, so we must drill to get water. Fred Wellbore was the only craftsman among the 7 craftsmen who had reached the master level. He was also an indispensable drill master in the territory. Not an oil drill master, but a water well drill master. His surname also originated from drilling. Wellbore is a wooden tool used to fix the wall of a well. It can be said that Fred's move to Black Horse Island solved the water problem of Black Horse Island. Gort continued, the papersmith Ravanya can build a thick bass paper workshop for him so that we can produce our own thick bass paper. The shoemaker, Flatten, can prepare a shoe shop in Flower Town. I believe that business should be able to get by. The 2 sculptors can be arranged to go to the carpentry workshop to carve furniture with the carpenters. The umbrella craftsman, Gomez, can also prepare an umbrella shop. I remember there is also a carpenter. List asked. Yes, the carpenter Dwight. I asked him yesterday. He can castrate cows and horses. He once castrated the horses for the nobles of Main City. Those horses originated from his castration. Gord is now more and more accustomed to his identity and works diligently. The batch of mixed horses in the stables is about to be born. In the future, when they grow up, the work of castrating the horses can be handed over to Dwight. Counting. Fiery Dragon and other Maras have been pregnant for 11 months, and it is time to give birth. This is the first batch of horses mixed with the Black Blood Horse bloodline. He does not know the quality, but List has high hopes for them. The purebred Black Blood Horse herd cannot be developed without decades of breeding. It is difficult to arm orders of chivalry, but they can continue to breed and give birth to hybrids. As long as the Mares can keep up, these hybrids can expand in a short time. Arming orders of chivalry is easy. He is already a Viscount of Black Horse Island and can support an Earth Knight regiment of more than 100 people to fight for him. Drillers, papersmith, shoemaker, umbrella craftsman, carver, and carpenter. These 7 selected craftsmen barely make up for some of the industries that Flower Town does not have. However, to build Black Horse Island, more craftsmen are needed. Tinkers, vinegar makers, butchers, scales, salt workers, sharpeners, pen makers, bamboo makers, molders, wax workers, ink workers, and so on. There are even burlesque actors and so on. This belongs to the construction of spiritual civilization. After returning to Flower Town, the green-feathered duck egg continued to bask in the sun. List went to the magic workshop and asked Chris about the progress of the answers to the magic notes. He did not expect that in just one day she had solved all the answers. My lord, the magician who asked the question is very intelligent, but his experience is too young. It is like he is fumbling on his own, and many of his common sense understandings are wrong. I have solved the questions in this magic notes for the time being. If you need it, I can write another detailed, basic teaching of magic and give it to you. Chris is very dedicated to Liszt as a savior or a sponsor of magic research. Of course, Liszt will not refuse. Then I will have to trouble you. She is a distant sister of mine. She does not like to practice qi, but is interested in magic. Chapter 413. The magic notes that Crazy had answered were given to a qi, who was studying seriously. The smoke mission was completed. Mission completed. Reward. Water Great Magician 8 qi eloids. Truth. Sure enough, a qi is about to break through and become a great magician. But then again, what is the distinction between a great magician and a magician? Liszt was very puzzled about this. Magic is not like Do Qi, which is divided into low-level, mid-level, high-level, and Dragon Do Qi. So, between a great magician and a magician, in addition to the different types of magic, he was not clear about the other differences. No one could answer his questions. So far, the only great magician he had seen was the court great magician who set off fireworks for Marquis Merlin on Red Crab Island, Gourmand in truth. They drank together at the banquet, but they did not chat more than a few words. Crazy had obviously been in contact with a great magician. Her teacher was a great magician, but her teacher did not tell her the meaning of a great magician early on, probably treating her as a cannon fodder for the goat gathering and did not want to teach her further magic knowledge. When a qi breaks through and becomes a great magician, I will study it again. Maybe I can summarize some information that can be used to help Crazy and help her break through and become a great magician. In this way, I have 2 great magicians. Magicians are indeed evil, but they should not harm me. Liszt's impression of the magician was not very good. Of course, the knight's practice was inseparable from the magician's supply of potions and making magic equipment. But the magician's paranoia to the truth made them fearless, and they would always do some terrible things. They often made some explosions, but they even had ideas about dragons. The great magician of the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf used the light dragon to transform the white dragon. The great magician of the goat gathering even used the sapphire dragon to transform the lich. As a noble knight and a member of the ruling class, Liszt naturally wanted to belittle the magician. Lawless, and he decided in his heart that if the magician could not be firmly controlled by himself, he would not let them live in his territory. In the Sea View Villa, Achi was reading the book seriously. Her face was sometimes confused and sometimes surprised, completely immersed in the answers of the magic notes. Liszt sat on the side, thinking about the new smoke mission. There aren't many glorious moments in a person's life that are worth remembering. For a knight, being promoted to a noble is definitely a moment that is worth remembering. Please treat this noble conferring ceremony with the best of your abilities and raise your prestige as a noble. Reward. Burst Spriteworm. Spriteworm outbreak. What does that mean? He pondered inwardly. Could it be that another Spriteworm is going to evolve? Or is the territory going to breed a new batch of Spriteworms? No matter which one it was a reward that made him excited. At present, he had 2 lesser sprites and 19 Spriteworms. For the Baron, this was a crazy amount of wealth. Even for a Viscount, it was a very generous amount. However, Liszt was still not satisfied. His goal in life was not to become a small Viscount, so the elves had to keep hoarding. Completing the noble conferment ceremony with a full face and increasing my prestige as a noble. I originally intended to keep a low profile, but now it seems that I need to keep a high profile. His high-profile action was to lead a luxurious team when he set off for Tulip Castle the next day. The Chocobo Loki was his mount, wearing a mithril armor, a sky-splitting sword, a swift shadow bow, and a bright red cloak embroidered with a black tulip. Dosin, the blizzard beast, led the 8 little ones who had been taught a lesson and returned to their shivering days, following closely behind. On the back of Black Dragon was his personal guard, the Black Dragon Gang Paris. Behind them were the 10 Earth Knights of Flower Town, a group of retainer knights, and officials waiting to witness his conferring ceremony. It could be said that all the followers were brought out. Only Ella and Nami were not put on his shoulders, and 19 servants were chosen to hold sprite worms. Such a flashy appearance, galloping all the way to Tulip Castle, attracted countless gazes. Specifically passing through Coral City, it attracted countless citizens to flock to the streets and discuss. This is Sir Count's most outstanding son, the new Sir Viscount. World of Warcraft, so many World of Warcraft. Just now, the World of Warcraft dog looked at me, and I was so scared that I almost peed in my crotch. What a terrifying look. The one riding on the big bird is Sir Viscount. His noble temperament is as awe-inspiring as Sir Count's. The Tulip family's bloodline is too noble, and the glory is always continuous. List did not hear the envy and admiration of the civilians. He whistled away from Coral City and rushed to Tulip Castle. Under the escort of the Night Guard, he went directly to the castle gate. The nobles who came to participate in the conferring ceremony came out of Tulip Castle to welcome the arrival of List. Viscount List, congratulations. Tonight will be your one-man show. Trick Wildgrass stepped forward and said, "The glory belongs to all the knight who are conferred the title tonight." List responded with a smile. In addition to him, there were several other Lord Knights who were conferred the title tonight. They were all veteran Earth Knights who had accumulated several military exploits and were granted the title of nobility. For these commoner-born Earth Knights, this was a day of qualitative change, a moment of glory that they dreamed of. The 10 Earth Knights of Flower Town were not conferred the title because they had not accumulated enough military exploits and did not have the ability and background of List. "Sir Viscount, Aubrey says hello to you." The fat man, who once put his arm around List's shoulder, dared not talk to List on an equal footing at the moment. He stood beside his father and bowed respectfully. List's heart was filled with emotion, but he was even more proud. However, his face was still as warm as a spring breeze, with a standard aristocratic smile. "Aubrey, you have gained a lot of weight. Come to Flower Town or Black Horse Island when you have time. As long as you're not busy, I look forward to visiting Black Horse Island at any time." Jonas Gravel and his son also came to say hello, but they were not very warm. In the Battle of Iron Hoof Island, Jonas's losses and gains were not balanced, and he was depressed. Just after the greetings, Levis appeared again, hugged List, and said loudly, "List, welcome the real owner of Tulip Castle tonight." This sentence was mostly polite, but it did mean that he was truly proud of Levis. After the polite greetings, he quickly changed the subject. "List, are these your blizzard beasts?" "Yes, they have grown up. I will take this opportunity to take them out for a walk and prepare for training them on the battlefield in the future." List snapped his fingers, and Dosen immediately led the 8 little ones around him. "I'm going to form a Blizzard Beast Siege Squad. I regret it," Levis said in an envious and complaining tone. "I really should have snatched a few Blizzard Beasts." Dosen's performance on the battlefield was too eye-catching. "By the way, has the female Flying Dust dog continued to get pregnant? You can't forget that you promised me half of the next baby of the Flying Dust dog." "I said I would give you a few, but I didn't say half. Of course, as long as they can continue to reproduce, I am willing to share them with the family. But it is a pity that the female Flying Dust dog is not pregnant." List expressed his regret. It was a real pity. Chapter 414. I pledge my life to serve Sir. The Tulip Hall, where the conferring ceremony had already begun, echoed with excited, uplifted, and trembling roars. 5 Earth Knights, who had accumulated enough military merits, held the medal symbolizing the title of Lord Knight. Hot tears overflowed from the corners of their eyes. The efforts of several generations had finally been realized in their generation. They were filled with glory and incomparable pride. Back in the day, the ancestors of the Tulip family were also commoners. Even earlier than that, their ancestors were serfs of an unknown country. Their great-great-grandfather, who was born with divine strength, came back alive from the battlefield and was conferred the title of Lord Knight, a hereditary title. Since then, the family grew stronger step by step and became the present Count family. The Lord Knight was a new starting point for the evolution of the aristocracy. Although the road ahead was not smooth and they could die on the battlefield at any time, there was already a clear path. The son would inherit his father's career and forge ahead. The 5 new Lord Knight solemnly performed the standard knight's loyalty ceremony to the Count sitting in the main seat. The Count calmly accepted it. Soon, the conferring ceremony quickly entered the real climax. The Count's retainer knight, holding the metal stick symbolizing power and the Viscount medal symbolizing glory, walked into the hall and stood aside. There was also a retainer knight, holding Lee William's sword. The Count stood up from his seat. He took 2 steps and said in a deep voice, "My son and my follower, List Tulip, I will repay courage with glory, loyalty with love, and betrayal with revenge. Witness the glory of the night." List took a step forward and, in accordance with the established procedure, knelt on the ground, straightened his body, and calmly gazed at the Count, neither happy nor sad. The retainer knight handed over the sword, and the Count picked it up. Placing the blade of the long sword on List's left shoulder, he solemnly said, "In view of your performance on the battlefield, your courageous charge, your fearlessness of life and death, your glorious glory, bringing Coral Island a lot of military merits." The blade was raised and moved to his right shoulder. "Now, as the Earl of Coral Island, I grant you the title of Viscount, Lord of Black Horse Island, in charge of all the power of Black Horse Island, and to provide for a knight to drive. For me." He handed the sword to the retainer knight, picked up the metal stick that symbolized power, and solemnly handed it over to List. List took the cane with both hands and slammed it on the ground. Clang! When the metal came into contact with the floor, it made a dull sound. Using the stick to support his body to stand up, he bowed and performed the knight's loyalty ceremony. "I will take charge of Black Horse Island, provide for the knight, and drive for my lord." William Lee nodded and picked up another medallion in the shape of a shield. About the size of a baby's palm, it was a bronze medallion with a light brass color. The front was engraved with patterns and patterns that symbolized a viscount. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a tulip. The back was engraved with the words Black Horse Island in serpentines. The workmanship was not exquisite and looked very rough, but this was a noble proof of aristocratic status. From now on, you will walk on the ground as a viscount. Civilians will kneel when they see you, and colleagues will call you by your title. And I, your Lord Lee William Tulip, will call your name. List Tulip. The Earl hung the Viscount medal on his chest. Immediately, the nobles around the hall shouted in unison, "Viscount List." Then the knight without a title bowed and shouted, "Sir Viscount." List turned around with a Viscount medal hanging on his neck and a metal cane. Looking around, he was in high spirits and determined that he had become the 4th Viscount on Coral Island and the 3rd Viscount of Fief. At this point, the short but exciting process of the conferring ceremony was over, and the glory had been obtained. Next was the celebration banquet. "List, I am proud of you." The Earl walked in front of him and raised his glass. "I hope that in the future, you will manage Black Horse Island well, gain more glory, and make the Tulip family famous because of your name. Father, I will always urge myself, work tirelessly, and continue to win glory." Levis also came with a glass of wine. "I hope that we brothers will continue to fight side by side and fight for the glory of the Tulip family." "Of course." Then his advisor, Gort, came happily and raised his glass. "To my lord, the glory of the Tulip family, and the ruler of Black Horse Island, List, I offer my most loyal tribute." Marcus and others came and toasted List. Drinking the flower wine, List decided to open his arms and refuse no one tonight. "I am with you. I am proud of you, my young man." Madame Penelope hugged List and sent her grandmother's blessing early in the morning as he prepared to leave. "Thank you, grandmother." Lavera also gave him a hug. "Well done, my dear brother. You always surprise us." Madame Marie and Lytton also came to say goodbye, at least on the surface, and he responded with a warm smile. Then he listened to the Earl's gratified smile. When the palace's envoys arrive, I will have advisor Jacob accompany the envoys to measure Black Horse Island. This is your territory. In the future, run it properly. If there are difficulties, ask the family for help. I know, Father. Build Black Horse Island as soon as possible, and your castle, I hope to have a room in it. Grandmother, you, Madame Marie, Levis, Lavera, and Lytton will all have a room in my castle. You are welcome to come to Black Horse Island at any time. The Earl patted List on the shoulder and looked at his son, who was much taller than himself, with an obvious smile. Go. I know you're thinking about Black Horse Island. List nodded, turned over on the chocobo Loki, and was ready to set off. At this time, Madame Penelope suddenly shouted, Oh, young man, wait a minute. I have another potted plant for you. Young knight, blessed by the glory of the night, it may bring you good luck. Saying that, her maid struggled to hold a potted tree half the height of a person. There were also a few purple-red oval fruits hanging on the tree. List felt helpless about his grandmother's habit of gifting him potted plants. After all, not every potted plant could breed a sprite worm. But he still smiled and asked the retainer knight to carry the potted plants to the carriage. Then the team set off, walking on the ground of Coral Island as the Viscount of Black Horse Island. Now, throughout Coral City, everyone knows that the new Viscount had been named. The name List is no longer passed down by word of mouth as the second son of the Tulip family, but the Viscount of Black Horse Island. The chocobo was very stable on his back, and he could summon smoke missions at will. The smoke rose and formed a large section of serpentines. At first glance, it seemed that the mission was not yet completed, but List looked closely and found that the mission was completed. It was just that the reward was somewhat jaw-dropping. Chapter 4:15. 5 Sprite Worms. List almost exclaimed. He was already surprised enough when he was rewarded with 3 rubber worms and 4 snake bloodfruit sprite worms. However, he was unexpectedly rewarded with 5 sprite worms at once. And the point was that these 5 sprite worms were different. The day before yesterday, I was complaining that I hadn't harvested a sprite worm for more than a month. And now, I have received such a concentrated surprise. The smoke grass sprite worm must be in the smoke grass field. It is easy to find. The green tea tree sprite must be one of the 3 green tea trees. The fig sprite worm. Flower Town and Black Horse Island don't seem to have figs. By the way, grandmother just gave me a potted plant. Does it look like a fig? He quickly went around to the carriage and told the retainer knight, Open the carriage door and let me see the potted plant. After the carriage door opened, in the vision of the magic eye, the potted plant had a magic reaction. On one of the purple-red fruits, there were obvious signs of red magic convergence. Take care of this potted plant. Don't break a leaf. Yes, sir. Looking away from the fig potted plant, Liz suddenly didn't know how to describe it. He just complained that his grandmother always liked to give potted plants to people. It didn't make sense at all. He didn't expect this to be the second potted plant with sprite worms that she gave away. It seems that I have to go to grandmother's balcony often to see if there will be a 3rd sprite worm. He was in a good mood. He had just been conferred the title of nobility, and here came 5 sprite worms to celebrate. In this way, the whereabouts of the fig worm, the smoke grass worm, and the green tea worm have been determined. Only the blackberry worm and the pea worm are left. Blackberries are very common wild shrubs on Coral Island, and there are also wild fruits that civilians can often eat, like raspberries and mulberries, with a sour and sweet taste. He didn't know if it was because there were too many wild blackberries, but no civilians chose to grow blackberries. Mrs. Abby, on the other hand, made a pie called blackberry pancake, which is a pancake sprinkled with blackberries. The taste is just passable. There are a lot of wild blackberries in Flower Town and Black Horse Island. If no one provides clues, it will be difficult to find the blackberry worm. List frowned and then thought about the other pea worm. Peas were a common food for civilians. Every commoner would plant peas in their yard. The ripe peas could be ground into flour and mixed with wheat flour to make grain black bread, which was the staple food of the commoners. Tender peas could be used as a vegetable to accompany bread. List liked eating peas, especially the fried green peas. It was like the American peas he used to eat before he crossed over. It tasted great. Almost every commoner's family grows peas, but there are no large-scale pea fields. I wonder whose family this pea worm will be born in. I hope this family is smart enough to discover the abnormality of the pea worm stalk and report it to the administrative office. Don't damage my pea worm stalk. The feast policy was that there would be high rewards for the discovery of potions, sprite worms, research of new technologies, and so on. Encourage the townsfolk to explore the new world. However, there weren't many who could actually receive this reward. Still, this reward was enthusiastically supported by the town's residents. Everyone hoped that they could be the lucky one. Therefore, List was not worried about his sprite worm. After all, what was to come would come. He enjoyed the scenery along the way, feeling that today's scenery was exceptionally beautiful. Perhaps only Meng Jiao's poem could describe his current mood. Flushed with success, seeing all the flowers of Chong and in a day. He couldn't help but reach out to touch the Viscount medal hanging on his chest, and then took it off. The moment of high profile had already passed. Next, it should be more stable. There was no need to continue wearing the Viscount medal, a superfluous ornament. Made of brass, I wonder how many copper coins can be forged from it. List thought. The medals of different titles were made of different materials. When the king conferred the title of Duke, it was said that the medal was made of the magic metal fine gold. The medal of Marquis was made of gold. The medal of Count was made of silver. The medal of Viscount was made of brass. And the medal of Baron was made of steel. As for the medal of Chevalier Knight, it was made of wrought iron. This medal was only used once during the conferring ceremony, or when participating in high-class banquets. It was rarely taken out, nor was it used as a token to prove one's identity. In List's castle, there was also a medal of the Flower Town's Baron, made of steel, which he had never worn. He handed the medal to the retainer knight for safekeeping. List continued to look at the smoke mission. A new mission had been issued. Mission, as the new Viscount Lord, with an independent island as a fief, the next step is naturally to build a castle worthy of your identity. Please choose a suitable location to build the castle. Reward: high-grade Qi secret manual. At first, when he saw the mission reward, his eyes suddenly blazed, feeling that he had been shrouded in the glory of a night. But after calming down and thinking about it, he couldn't help but laugh. He understood where the mission reward came from. During the Battle of Iron Hoof Island, when plundering the spoils of war, he had found the high-grade Qi secret manual 15-kilogram Thunder Sky Shock Flash in Fragrant Celery Castle. Therefore, he asked the Count to use this secret manual to trade for a high-grade Qi secret manual suitable for fire-attributed Qi. The Count naturally would not refuse his son's request. Moreover, the family did not have a thunder-attributed knight. Although I know that the reward for the smoke mission will not be fabricated out of thin air, but this kind of reward, which clearly can be achieved without the smoke mission, is really a bit embarrassing. Like the birth of a sprite worm, he really needed the smoke mission's hint and the threat of fate. Under the current circumstances, there was no need for the smoke mission to interfere. However, the smoke mission had already interfered, leaving List quite helpless. He now had two choices. One was to wait for the high-grade Qi secret manual to arrive, then he could change the mission and issue a new one. The other was to complete the mission. It just wants you to choose a suitable location to build the castle, not to build a castle now. Therefore, the mission is not difficult. Since it was not difficult, he would naturally choose to complete it as a double insurance, ensuring that he had a high-grade Qi secret manual suitable for his use. Because he had gradually felt that his potions were progressing smoothly and his strength was improving rapidly, far surpassing that of his elder brother, Levis. He compared the total amount of Qi between him and Levis and found that the Qi within his body had clearly surpassed that of Levis. Levis had been using potions for a few years, while List had been using potions for less than a year. After 1 year, I have already surpassed Levis. Perhaps in another year or two, I will really be able to promote to a Sky Knight before the age of 20. Scientific potions are really effective. Moreover, I have dragon milk to increase nutrition, green tea to digest food, World of Warcraft meat every day, and I still haven't finished eating the six-headed king sea serpent meat. It could be said that by relying on his own gains, his potion methods were not inferior to those of greater aristocrats. Right, I also have Black Nightshade, a type of supplementary potion. I wonder if it will improve my potions. While thinking. Chapter 416. After returning to the flower town, List busied himself. First, he placed the fig worm stalk in the castle's garden and instructed the servants to fertilize and water it. Then, at the luncheon, he summoned all of the town's officials and announced a general survey. Check all the crops in the fief. No sprite worms have been bred for more than a month. There may be some that have been overlooked. The general survey was just a cover to conceal his knowledge of the sprite worm's existence in advance. In the afternoon, he joined the general survey and patrolled the flower town. Of course, he was selective in his patrolling. Soon, he patrolled the smoke grass field, released magic eyes, and began to look for the worm stalk. Not long after, he easily saw the worm stalk in a corner of the farmland. To be precise, he also saw the sprite worm. The worm stalk was not very conspicuous, but its branches and leaves were exuberant, with a chubby gray sprite worm crawling on it. It has actually been bred. It seems that it happened during the time I was away. Perhaps the farmland was fertilized too much, greatly increasing the probability of the flower town's sprite worm breeding. Normally, a small town could produce a sprite worm in a year, which was already a good harvest. Because of the smoke mission, the flower town greatly increased the survival rate of sprite worms, making them almost impossible to miscarry. As for why a plant could breed a sprite worm, there was not yet enough data to analyze and make a judgment. It might be related to nutrition. However, the most nutritious plants might not necessarily breed sprite worms, while malnourished plants might also breed sprite worms. My 4 snake blood fruit worms were bred from the blood of a snake-type sea monster, which is probably a clue. Unfortunately, I still don't understand what conditions trigger the breeding of sprite worms. Magic power radiation, nutritional stimulation, or genetic mutation. A thought flashed by. He had already taken out jade powder and sprinkled it on the leaves of the smoke grassworm stalk, attracting the smoke grassworm. Watching the smoke grassworm energetically lick the jade powder, he stretched out the finger smeared with the jade powder. Then it was bitten. It was not very painful, nor was it bleeding. The next moment, a telepathic contract was established, and he could already feel the little fellow's vague emotions. It was happy because it ate the jade powder. Pack it up. List picked up the smoke grassworm and gave it to the retainer knight to put in a jade box. Rome, protect this smoke grassworm stalk. Yes, sir. Rome responded with a very excited expression. Flower Town is really a place of night glory. Sir is born to be a night glory. List had heard so much about the topic of the night's glory that his ears were going to get calluses. However, he felt every time he listened, he didn't get bored. He contracted the smoke grassworm. The blackberry worm and pea worm could only wait for now. The worm stalk's distribution range was too wide, and there was no way to find it. They could only wait patiently for the reports from the civilians. He planned to sail to Black Horse Island tomorrow to complete the smoke mission and contract the green tea bug. He had not left the smoke grass field. Hearing that he had contracted a new sprite worm, Gort quickly rushed over and flattered him. List did not lose himself in the flattery. He still kept a clear head and casually asked, "Consultant Gort, how do you deal with the smoke grass in the town? It's mainly used to be dried and stacked in an open space, then wrapped in wheat straw. It's not very useful normally. Smoke grass was extremely smelly. It might be effective against World of Warcraft and wild beasts. Now that the flower town had razed the Thorns Ridge to the ground, let alone World of Warcraft, there were not even a few stray cats to be seen. Therefore, the smoke grass was basically useless. The hay that had been harvested was piled in the clearing and left to rot. But even if the smoke grasses were really useless, List would not cut them down because they were the only good thing that could attract the invisible dragon. Rationally, he concluded that the possibility of the invisible dragon returning to the flower town was very small. However, inwardly, he was still looking forward to the day when the invisible dragon would recall the smell of the smoked grass and return. At that time, the smoked grass still has its value. Don't slack off when it comes to planting. Now that we have the smoked grass worm, we'll maintain an area of 100 mu. Also, arrange for people to study the use of the smoked grass. Don't ignore it just because it smells bad. List pondered for a moment and said, I'll give you an idea. Sir, please instruct us. If the smoked grass can smoke away World of Warcraft, then have you ever considered diluting and reducing its smell so that people can't smell it, yet it can drive away mosquitoes? He thought a plan on Earth, mugwort. During the Dragon Boat Festival, people would hang mugwort on their doorsteps. Normally, many people would burn mugwort to drive away mosquitoes or crush it in a powder to fill pillows and sachets. The moxa sticks used in acupuncture were also made of mugwort. There was probably no mugwort in this world. Therefore, List wondered whether the smoke grass would have the same effect. You can start your research from this aspect. In short, you have to think about the possibilities of these plants. Gort flattered. Sir, you always have a genius idea. I will arrange for the serfs to study whether the smoke grass can drive away mosquitoes as soon as possible. When List gave him an idea, List would only think about it. He had no intention of using his brain at all. Without experiencing the baptism of the Industrial Revolution, human thinking would only be limited to the established rules and regulations. List felt very helpless about this. Fiery Dragon was about to give birth. One-Eyed Barton, who already had a lame leg, was very worried. He went to the stable on crutches from his sickbed and personally took charge of Fiery Dragon's delivery. List patrolled Flower Town. In the evening, he came to visit his old partner. Fiery Dragon was his birthday gift, his night's dream, and his entanglement of father-son feelings. The transmigrator List also liked this docile filly very much. However, ever since he tamed Black Dragon, Fiery Dragon's appearances became less and less, and it gradually became a breeding tool. Stroking its fiery red mane, List couldn't help but whisper, After you give birth, I will ride you and gallop again. Fiery Dragon seemed to understand his words. It gently rubbed its head against List's arm and made a slight sound, humph. List and Fiery Dragon were intimate for a moment. List looked at One-Eyed Barton, who was on crutches. Barton, how is your leg injury? Thank you for your concern, Master. Barton's leg is lame, but his body has recovered. I hope Master does not mind. Barton can continue to raise horses and drive for Master. Of course, you can continue to raise horses for me. After a while, I will build a castle on Black Horse Island. At that time, you will have more horses to raise. It may be very hard. I'm not afraid of hard work. Please rest assured, Master, Barton will definitely keep the castle's horses strong and healthy. One-Eyed Barton said excitedly. To him, being able to work in the castle was the best outcome. Everyone envies the work in the castle. Of course, it would be better if the group of blizzard beasts could stay away. Barton felt a faint pain in his calf when he thought of those crazy big dogs. It was as if a crazy blizzard beast had released a rock spike and pierced it. Take good care of your injuries and leave the hard work to the 5 men who have learned to raise horses. Whether it is for compensation or Barton's talent in raising horses, List will continue to hire One-Eyed Barton. Chapter 417. After handing over the production of Fire Dragon to One-Eyed Barton, List returned to the castle. Before eating, he took the time to play the piano again. The impulse of being the king of piano has probably subsided, but he still likes to play the piano. Listening to music purifies the mind. At the dinner party, his followers got drunk to celebrate his success in being knighted on Black Horse Island. I wish I could be so carefree. List envied these people. They could eat and drink without thinking about the future. He was still a little depressed in his heart because before the start of the dinner, Blair, the financial officer, reported to him, My lord, you asked for 4,260 gold coins to be raised. With the financial resources of Flower Town and Black Horse Island, the current commercial funds and taxes have all been transferred, and only 1,350 gold coins have been raised. If the remaining gold coins are mortgaged with the future proceeds of Flower Brew, how long will it take to withdraw enough gold coins from Tulip Castle? I have calculated that the current production scale and market sales of Flower Brew are only partially spread on Coral Island and Red Crab Island. Golden Island is still under negotiation. The monthly share is about 600 gold coins. It will take about 6 months to withdraw enough gold coins. Then mortgage it. But my lord, if the future proceeds of Flower Brew are mortgaged, the construction of the territory for the next 6 months will immediately be in trouble. We do not have enough financial resources to support the construction of Black Horse Island. We can't maintain only by the proceeds of Flower Soap, Carpentry Workshop, and Black Tulip. Blair said helplessly. Flower Town's foundation was still too thin, and List was bent on rapid development, leading to the collapse of the capital chain. Don't worry, first mortgage the proceeds of Flower Brew. I will find a way to get the missing gold coins. List comforted him, but his heart was bleeding. He knew that he would have to sell his family property again. So, his followers drank heartily, but he couldn't get involved. He didn't want to get involved. He didn't like drinking. Holding the iced juice and sipping it, his mind was thinking about how to make money. Flower Town is obviously rich in products, and a large number of elves are promoting production, but it still can't keep up with my consumption. It's the most profitable potion, but it's only enough for me to take it myself. It's really hard to raise an elite Earth Knight of the potion style. In this world, as long as one had enough to eat and had a decent aptitude, one could basically cultivate to become an Earth Knight. However, not everyone could afford the elite Earth Knight who insisted on taking drugs every day. Black Horse Island has not yet been developed. At present, List's income comes from Flower Town. That is, with the help of the Smoke Mission, coupled with the development of flower wine, flower soap, and other products, with the power of Small Town, he was able to continue to take pills and cultivate. Gold coins were the biggest obstacle to a knight's progress. Otherwise, we can sell rubber. Black Horse Island hasn't been developed and doesn't need too much rubber. Such a good product, Tulip Castle should need it. It could be sold for a good price. After magic potions and ironwood, the most important agricultural product in the territory was the all-purpose rubber. Of course, the milk of dragon-type cows was also an important product, but it was not suitable for public consumption and was suitable for internal supply. In fact, he could also sell the inventory of mithril, jade, and crystals, but these were consumable resources, easy to sell but difficult to obtain, so he was reluctant to sell them. So it's decided, sell rubber. After the dinner, he went to the Sea View Villa. Achi hardly went swimming these 2 days. She was seriously reading notes and studying magic, almost fascinated by it. This made List feel like he had been left out in the cold. Brother, Achi feels that she will soon be able to understand the key information and break through to become a great magician. She is helping her brother sail. Fortunately, she was just too involved in magic research and did not really neglect List. It's necessary to work hard, but don't stay up too late. More relaxation can make your brain clearer and more efficient than burying yourself in magic books all day. Well, Achi understands. Having said that, her eyes still couldn't leave the magic books. List stopped bothering her and began to tease Nami. The mangrove elf did not feed the ducks on Mangrove Island today, but stayed with Achi in the Sea View Villa. Chirp! Nami sat at the table, holding an apple in her hand. The apple was given to her by List, and she liked apples very much. Nami, do you like mangroves? Chirp, chirp. Nami took another bite of the apple, and then blinked her big eyes at List, not knowing if she understood List's words. According to the living habits of mangroves, I plan to plant mangroves in Flower Town and the seaside of Black Horse Island to create habitats for green caterpillars and mallard ducks. He was talking to Nami, but he was actually thinking about it himself. Green caterpillars cannot be raised in ordinary forests. Mallard ducks may be raised in cages, but if you want to raise them well, you can't do without the green caterpillars. The green caterpillars on Mangrove Island alone certainly cannot support the large-scale breeding of mallard ducks. Chirp! Nami glanced at List and looked down at the big apple she was holding. Then, she reluctantly handed the big apple to List. Chirp! Haha! I don't want to eat it. You eat it. List pushed the apple back and touched the little green leaves and red flowers on Nami's head. The emerald green Nami looked particularly pleasant. Originally, in addition to her beauty, her biggest role was that the mangrove tree could produce a kind of fruit with a light sweet and sour taste. It was not very delicious, and he didn't know what it was used for. However, with the establishment of the food chain relationship between green caterpillars and mallard ducks, the use of mangroves began to emerge. Mangroves were inseparable from Nami's mangrove cordyceps, not to mention that Nami could also raise ducklings. After playing for a while, List left the Sea View Villa. Early the next morning, List took the flowers to Black Horse Island. Now, the flowers basically traveled between Black Horse Island and Flower Town every day. Captain Costo not only transported cargo, but also trained his crew by sailing. When Black Horse Island entered a stage of rapid development, List must form a fleet to serve his territory. Teacher Marcus, Isaiah, what do you think of this land for building a castle? I want to build a waterfront castle, half immersed in the water and the other half standing on the shore. Standing on the rocky shore east of the port town, List asked his followers for their opinions. The castle is closely related to the city. Sir, have you decided to build the port town into a port city? Black Horse Island is too small. A port city is very necessary. The island is suitable for building a port. In addition to the current Black Horse port, there is only one seaport in the northwest. List said, in terms of route and distance, the port town is the most suitable place to build a city. Then I have no problem with the castle being built in its current location. But sir, we may be able to build the castle completely on the shore to avoid being attacked by sea creatures. Chapter 4:18. List intended to build a modern castle. With rubber and ironwood, many plans could be realized. Of course, there was no money to build a castle, so he had to live for a few days without money. However, this did not prevent him from planning the castle's building location, floor area, and high-level requirements. The attached castle was probably the tallest building in a city. The Flower Town's small nameless castle was only 2 stories high. Generally, nameless castles were 2 or 3 stories high. Most of the castles with names had 4 stories. Many viscounts and earls would build 4-story castles. Outside the 4-story main body, there might be taller steeples used for vigilance and defense. Tulip Castle was a 4-story castle, but it was built according to the mountainside, looking particularly majestic. Greater aristocrats generally chose steep mountainside locations to build their castles, which were easy to defend and difficult to attack. The most magnificent castle List had ever seen was Lontaro Castle. The 5-story castle looked like it was integrated with a mountain range, a miracle built of rock. From now on, this rocky beach will be the location of the castle. To the east and north, the castle's attached buildings will be built one after another. To the south, a stone road will be built to connect the port city. As for the port city, I hope that its scale will be between that of a large city and a small city. Incidentally, List also outlined his idea for the new city. Normally, a lord's city would develop spontaneously, slowly accumulating population and slowly expanding in scale. Therefore, the city appeared chaotic and unhygienic, with sewage, feces, and urine flowing everywhere. List did not want his city to become a city of feces and urine. Sewers, toilets, and septic tanks were essential facilities for him to build a new city and a new town. The separation of the commercial district, workshop district, and residential district was also the urban planning that he advocated. Such a city could be called the light of civilization. At night, List summoned the Smoke Mission. Now that the location of the new castle has been determined, this is the place. The threads of fate were pulled, and the smoke turned into snake-like trajectories, twisting together to form a section of serpentines. Mission completed. Reward: high-level cheese secret manual, red sun, rising fire. The high-level cheese secret manual had arrived and was probably stored in Tulip Castle. He immediately paid attention to the new mission. Mission: the crystal craftsman Brad has lost his job. All the volcanic glass in the town's inventory has been carved into utensils. His crystal workshop is completely idle. As the Lord, you should solve his job problem. Reward: mutated corngrass. Mutated corngrass? The corngrass was currently being cultivated as a pasture. The scale of cultivation was very large, reaching an area of 300 mu. They were often harvested as fodder for the black blood horses and dragon breed cows to provide them with more nutrition. List's heart skipped a beat. The mutated corngrass is developing in the direction of potions? Or should I say corn? Corngrass is not corn. According to the species classification on Earth, corn was domesticated from wild corn grass by humans 10,000 years ago. It was only until today that it became a cereal corn that produced large cobs. This meant that corn grass and corn cobs were somewhat related. In this magical world, it was not impossible for corn grass to mutate into corn. Compared to the pasture attribute corn grass, the grain attribute corn on the cob was the real divine weapon. I remember that corn is not only high-yielding, but it is also the easiest to grow compared to other grains. List remembered watching some short videos about Africa. Africans loved to grow corn the most because they could plant it directly in the field. There was no need to weed or fertilize it. When it matured, they would wait for the weeds to wither. They find that corn can also produce corn cobs. Corn can be processed in a cornmeal to make their staple sema, similar to corn paste, which can be eaten by hand. It would be great if it really mutated into corn. Black Horse Island is huge, and I don't have enough serfs to farm it. But corn, as long as it is planted, I don't care. When harvest time comes, the yield may not be high, but it is better than planting other crops. It will be invaded by grass, and there will be no harvest. This was a beautiful expectation. In order to get the possibility of corn cobs, List decided to seriously solve Brad's job. Brad was a crystal craftsman who carved crystal objects for a living. He had a good income in Coral City and belonged to the wealthy class of civilians. However, because of the confidentiality of the telescope, he was sent to Flower Town by the Count and became a subject of List, settling in Flower Town. Now, the telescope did not need to be made, and volcanic glassware did not need to be made. He had nothing to do all day. I originally planned to let Brad make glass in the future, but now it seems that glass can't be studied for a while. Even if it is studied, glass seems to be very brittle and difficult to carve. It seems that glass is blown out. List remembered seeing glass making. The red-hot glass is blown, expanded, and then artificially shaped to get glass products, such as wine glasses, teacups, jars, etc. In addition, there seems to be a flat pressing method to press the glass solution into flat glass, which is used on the window glass. Unfortunately, these two production methods and the produced items seem to have nothing to do with Brad's profession. He can't always change his exquisite carving skills to work with high-temperature glass solutions. As for the finished glass, there is no need for further engraving. Let him learn other carving arts? List thought again, but he quickly rejected it. Craftsmen were basically inherited from generation to generation. It would be very difficult for Brad to change to other carving. His thinking has become rigid. When he was asked to carve volcanic glass, it was obvious that he was very reluctant. Moreover, the craft of crystal carving also needs to be constantly practiced to preserve. I'll just take out another batch of crystals and let him keep working. Anyway, when the castle is built, a lot of crystal products will be needed to decorate it. When this batch of crystal carving is finished, it's almost time to mine new volcanic glass, which will keep him busy. The 5 recovered dragon bones are still waiting for me to save them. He made a decision. He can sleep in peace. Early the next morning, riding the chocobo Loki, he went to the meadow and changed to the king of black blood horses, Lightning. In fact, he no longer needs this ordinary dragon horse mount, but in order to show that the Lord and his followers are with the knight, he still needs a horse. Even the Sapphire Grand Duke has a blue blood horse mount, often charging with his knight. Lightning is the link between List and the knight. Go! With the retainer knight, List went straight to the 3 green tea trees on the northern hillside of the Icegrass Hill. The green tea was still being picked, and it grew very well in this season. The tea leaves fried could satisfy List's drinking needs alone. Casting magic eyes, it was easy to see that the largest green tea tree in the middle had already given birth to a sprite worm. Carl, this green tea tree has already given birth to a sprite worm. Protect it and notify me immediately once the sprite worm is born. Knight's glory favors. Chapter 419. Since returning from Black Horse Island, there have been many happy events. First, a civilian found that the peas they planted were growing bigger and bigger. They reported it to the administrative office, and List then identified it as a breeding pea worm. Then the patrol found a large blackberry vine in a blackberry bush in the wild, which was also identified by List as a cordyceps. So far, the reward of the last smoke mission, the smoke grass worm, has been contracted, and the fig worm, blackberry worm, pea worm, and green tea worm have all been confirmed as cordyceps. Immediately after, the news was brought by the messenger knight from Tulip Castle. Sir Viscount, Sir Meopal of Red Crab Island Lontaro Castle has visited Tulip Castle, and the Count has asked you to receive him. Cousin is here? List was surprised, but he immediately nodded to express his understanding. Sir Meopal visited the Tulip Castle. Did he mention a reason? I don't know yet, Sir Viscount. Okay, go take a break and have a glass of juice. Thank you, Sir Viscount. It was already evening. List did not immediately go to Tulip Castle. He was going to go tomorrow. As for why Meopal came, List did not guess. He would know tomorrow anyway. In the evening, he habitually visited the siren Chi. Now a Chi may break through to become a water mage at any time. Unfortunately, he did not see a Chi at the Seascape Villa tonight. There was no response from blowing the horn. I don't know where a Chi swam to. Forget it. Let's go back. Since he did not see a Chi, he could only go back. Only when he returned to the castle did he know that Elksun Truth had arrived. Sir Viscount, I have not been able to come to Flower Town in time to congratulate you. Mr. Elksun, long time no see. List motioned for Elksun to sit down. I have been back for a few days, but I haven't seen your magic books. I'm a little worried. I went to the outer island and contacted the mages I knew before to find new magic and magic books. This time I brought a carriage full of magic books and 7 new casting schemes. Elksun said excitedly, knowing that he could make a fortune again. The corner of List's mouth twitched. He was now so poor that he was about to sell his family's assets. He felt a dull pain in his flesh when he spent a large sum of money to buy magic books and spellcasting plans. But for a Chi's future and for Crazy's progress. In the end, he decided to buy these magic books and spellcasting plans. Fortunately, I still have a little money stashed away, enough to pay for this trip. List took out a total of 62 gold coins from the castle's purse. List didn't know where Elksun got the water magic waterfall and ice magic eternal frozen ice that can only be mastered by a great magician. Just these 2 magic books cost 40 gold coins. The waterfall was suitable for the future water archmage Chi to practice, and the everlasting ice was suitable for Crazy, who was proficient in ice magic. After the transaction was completed, Elksun did not immediately leave. Instead, he looked around mysteriously, and after confirming that the servant had left, he said, Lord Viscount, have you heard of the Dragon's Soul? Dragon's Soul? List shook his head. He had never heard of it. Elksun explained, legend has it that the soul of the dragon lives in the dragon's teeth. So the dragon tooth is the best weapon, but it is not the best weapon. There is also a legend that the soul of the dragon is extracted and poured into a special weapon to form the dragon's soul, which is the best weapon. Is there such a thing? I also heard about it. Elksun smiled. Lord Viscount, I have talked to several magician friends on the outer island about the Battle of Iron Hoof Island and know very little about it. I wonder if you can tell me some details. I will sum it up and tell you some information I know. List nodded. What details do you want to know? The battle between the Grand Duke and the Marquis Bull. This was not a secret. List said the Marquis Bull became a very powerful lich, with blue flames all over his body, 2 or 3 times taller than the average person, holding a big sword with blue flames. Very strong. Besieged by a group of Sky Knight, he still killed several Sky Knights and escaped from Fort Juniper. Unfortunately, he met the Grand Duke riding a dragon, slapped him back, pulled out something from his chest, and then was taken away. Elksun said, "So, the plan is half successful." "What plan?" "I wonder if Lord Viscount has heard of the Goat Assembly." "I have heard of the Goat Assembly." The Marquis Bull carried out the dragon-slaying plan with the evil wizard of the Goat Assembly, but eventually failed and escaped. List glanced at Elksun, wondering what his expression was when he said, "evil wizard." To his disappointment, Elksun didn't care about the title. "I heard that the Goat Assembly cooperated with the Marquis Bull in order to make a dragon soul. The Marquis Bull needs the power of the Sapphire Dragon to transform into a lich, and the Goat Assembly wants to steal the soul of the Sapphire Dragon." "Your magician friend told you that?" "Yes. Those magicians often organize trade fairs to exchange casting materials needed by each other and often leak some information. I just went to buy magic books and casting programs and accidentally heard the news. I thought it might be useful to you, Lord Viscount." Regardless of whether the news was true or false, List still approved of Elksun's behavior. "This news is not very useful. The Marquis Bull and the Goat Assembly have been destroyed, and the Grand Duke's dragon is safe and sound. However, living in the countryside is really behind the news. In the future, when you search for magic books and casting programs, help me find out some valuable information." He then added, "I will pay you according to the value of the information. I am very willing to serve Lord Viscount." Elksun's eyes narrowed, and he smiled happily. He had degenerated from a magician who worshipped the truth to a dealer who only wanted to make money. "By the way, Mr. Elksun, tell me more about the dragon soul." "In fact, I don't know much. My peers are always mysterious. They say half and leave half, or they know a little and add a little on their own. They think that the Grand Duke's dragon has been taken away and that the magicians of the Goat Assembly have taken the dragon's soul to make the dragon soul. As for what the dragon soul looks like, no one knows. In fact, not only the dragon soul, but also the dragon teeth. These are just legends. The best weapon that List knew existed was a great elf weapon, a magic weapon soaked in the blood of the great elf, the sword of the Sapphire Grand Duke. The name of the sword was called the Howling Cage Sword. Chapter 420. It was unknown why a great elf soldier was called the Wailing Cage Sword, but its value was absolutely huge. After all, it needed to be soaked in the blood of a great elf. Even if it was an enemy great elf or an old great elf, it was still expensive. The weapon under the great elf soldier was the Dragon Bone Soldier, a weapon made of dragon bones. List suspected that the Marquis Bull's sword with blue flames was a Dragon Bone Soldier. It just so happened that the left foreleg of the Sapphire Dragon was broken, and a lot of its power was stolen by the Marquis Bull. The clues matched. Below it was the little elf soldier, then the gemstone weapon, then the magic equipment. The value of magic equipment depended on the value of the materials used to make it. If it was made of advanced World of Warcraft or even Super Warcraft materials, the value could definitely be comparable to the Dragon Bone Soldier. The weapons above the Great Elf Soldier were most likely the Dragon Tooth Soldier and the Dragon Bone Soldier. Now, there was the Dragon Soul Soldier that Elksun told him. Maybe in the future, even the Elven King weapon will appear and become a legend. List thought. The Elven King was the evolution of the dragon spirit. Although it only existed in legends, no one knew its description, ability, and value. But it was not impossible to become a reality. As long as there was a possibility, it was possible to be killed, bled, and soaked in the weapon. He even thought, using the dragon tooth as the main material of the weapon, infusing it with the soul of the dragon, and then soaking it in the blood of the Elven King, would it become a supreme artifact? I really hope that one day I can create such a unique artifact, ride on the dragon, gallop across the continent, and explore the world. In this magic-filled world, There are countless hidden secrets waiting to be discovered. Of course, List was still very weak, and his range of activities was limited to a few islands. He must be down to earth and develop step by step. One day, his ideals will be realized. Under the illumination of the crystal lamp, the study was bright. List sliced open the covers of the magic books one by one. If he sliced open 100 book covers, he would obtain the bronze-level skin-slicing madman achievement. He had probably already become a gold-level skin-slicing madman. No, no, no. All right, I didn't find any battle or secret skills in this batch of magic books. I can sleep in peace. List piled the books into a pile and planned to separate them into story and research types the next day. He would keep the story type and give the research type to Chris and Ichi. I just don't know how they will feel when they see the torn cover. He left the study. After asking the servants to prepare the bath water, he took a simple bath and returned to his bedroom to sleep. However, just as he was about to fall asleep, in the Black Pearl Lake several dozen li away, on the ring-shaped reef that was exposed when the tide ebbed, an enormous white shell slowly swam out from the water. Under the moonlight, the white shell slowly opened, and the figure of a young girl slowly stretched out. Using the seawater in the shell, she quickly floated on the surface of the sea. With his back facing the moon, he hovered silently in the air. A clear and melodious voice broke the silence of the Black Pearl Lake at night. Use meditation to communicate with mana, and use mana to build a bridge. The bridge will extend into a path, and the end of the path will be surrounded by countless runes. That is magic. The girl slowly raised her left hand. Her 5 fingers opened, and a faint blue light condensed at her fingertips, forming a bowl-sized shield-like wrinkles. The wrinkles slowly expanded outward in the form of water waves, forming a larger arc. The light blue light, together with the moonlight, illuminated the girl's face. It was the spirit of the sea, the siren, Ichi. At this time, Ichi's face was extremely devout. Her eyes were extraordinarily firm and serious, and there were signs of sweat oozing from her forehead. Let the mana boil in the body. Let the runes bind it into a magic array, and magic is born in the magic array. Ichi will succeed. The siren gritted her teeth and tried to release magic. Brother is so looking forward to Ichi becoming a water archmage. Ichi must not let brother down. In the name of Ichi Lloyd's truth, water magic, water wave shield, come out. Crash! The sea around the shell trembled and splashed countless waves. With Ichi's final clear shout, the arc-shaped water wave in front of her suddenly expanded, curved and extended to the left and right, and finally closed. It formed an egg-shaped ball of light, enveloping Ichi in it. Ah! Ichi exclaimed, and then she was overjoyed. Ichi did it, the water wave shield that only a great magician can master. Hee. Ichi has finally overcome the magician's cognitive barrier, completed a deep understanding of the magic array, and promoted to a great water magician. She sank from the surface of the sea into the sea, and the water wave shield surrounded her. It didn't require much magic to maintain, and the light eggshell could continue until the magic array that maintained it collapsed, which took about half an hour. Swimming quickly, she replaced the water wave shield halfway and returned to the Sea View Villa with the water wave shield. She wanted to tell List the good news, but looking at the dark night sky, she suddenly thought that it was already after midnight. Oh, I can't share the joy with my brother. It's so annoying. Early the next morning, after List finished walking the dog, Brad was already waiting in the castle. My lord, what can I do for you? I heard that you have nothing to do recently, so I will give you a task. I need to carve a set of exquisite crystal tableware to show the dignity of a viscount. I will have Mr. Carter take out the castle's crystal tableware for you to use as a reference. Be sure to carve this new set of tableware to perfection. Yes, my lord. Despite his complaints, Brad still respectfully received his new task in front of List. The work that had troubled Brad was easily solved. This set of crystal tableware could last him for almost a month. After a month, he would be even busier when the volcanic glass was mined. After sending Brad away, List directly summoned the smoke mission. Mission completed. Reward: a variant type of corngrass. A variant type of corngrass. Has it really become a corn cob? List was pleasantly surprised. He immediately ordered a servant to inform the administrative official Isaiah to suspend the harvesting of the corngrass. After he went to Tulip Castle and received Meopal, he would personally find the corn cob and arrange for it to be cultivated. This would provide a new source of food for the territory. At this time, he looked at the next smoke mission. Mission: as a lord, you only need to manage your dignity. However, if you want to achieve leapfrog development, you have to work hard. Please carefully consider the position of the flower town and make a plan for the industrial transfer. Reward: a variant type of corngrass. Chapter 4:21. It was not clear what the new variant of corngrass was. On the way, List was thinking about the transfer of Flower Town's industries. Even without the smoke mission prompt, he still had the idea of transferring the industries. In the future, he would definitely focus on the development of Black Horse Island. His positioning of Flower Town was clear. It was to serve as a trade transit station for Coral Island and a location for cooperative industries. Some industries with advanced intellectual property rights would be moved to Black Horse Island and placed on his own independent territory. List roughly figured it out. He arrived at Tulip Castle and soon met his cousin, Meopal Longtaro. After some communication, he learned the reason for Meopal's visit. He and the Grand Duke's youngest daughter, Angela Sapphire, had their wedding date set on August 17th, which was Angela's 19th birthday. Congratulations, cousin. List gave his blessings. Meopal smiled. In fact, there is nothing to congratulate me on. It is not easy to live your current life after getting rid of your single status. That's true. After all, the other party is a little princess. Now that I am engaged, your brother Levis is engaged to Marquis Roderick's daughter. Only Lavera and you are left. You are now a viscount. It is time to plan for a viscountess. Meopal's matchmaker nature had not diminished. He was still worried when he arrived at Tulip Castle. I'm not in a hurry. Time is on my side. List promptly interrupted. He really did not have the idea of getting married and having children. He would at least wait until he was 25 or 26 years old before thinking about it. That's right. You are now in the ascendant period of night glory. Your future is very bright. Do you know how grandfather evaluated you and your father this time? Oh, what did grandfather say? Grandfather said that uncle will be the new Marquis of the Grand Duchy. Meopal looked around and determined that no one was eavesdropping on their conversation. He said that Levis was barely able to defend his legacy. But you, as for you, might become the new glory of the Grand Duchy's younger generation, if your strength can increase faster. I was promoted to an Earth Knight after I reached adulthood. Although I am now an elite Earth Knight, does grandfather really think so highly of me? List was curious. His performance was extraordinary, but compared to a true genius, it was still very ordinary. After all, those geniuses were all Earth Knights before they reached adulthood. Meopal shrugged his shoulders. Grandfather said that he saw a powerful self-confidence in your eyes. It wasn't the kind of conceit a genius should have, but rather the calm self-confidence of someone who truly feels that they can rely on hard work to achieve success. But to be honest, I admit that your eyes are very bright, but not as bright as mine. Confidence and bright eyes don't seem to be the same thing. At this time, Levis walked over. Meopal, List, what are you two talking about? List laughed. Cousin and I are comparing whose eyes are brighter. This shows who is more confident. Well, if that's the case, then I'll definitely be ranked first. Levis made a matter-of-fact expression. List can be ranked second. As for Meopal, after marrying the little princess, he will probably live a gloomy life. Angela is not easy to get along with. I will not bring shame to the Taro family. Just wait and see. After Angela moves into the Long Taro Castle, she can only be the mistress, while I will be the absolute master of the Long Taro Castle in the future. Regarding this, List was very skeptical. He did not like to maliciously speculate about other people's character, But Angela Sapphire's reputation was indeed very bad. Looking at Meopal, who was still in the joy of marrying the princess, he silently prayed, "I hope that cousin Meopal's hat will not turn green." Meopal did not plan to stay in Tulip Castle for long. There were still many aristocrats that he needed to personally invite. Therefore, the next day, July 25th, he left Coral Island. Angela is very sociable. She keeps in touch with many young ladies of greater aristocratic families. You can rest assured that I will keep an eye out for you and try to introduce you to a suitable aristocratic young lady to help you manage the castle. Before leaving, he did not forget to continue playing the role of a matchmaker. Thank you. Although List said thank you, he was extremely speechless in his heart. Would he dare to marry an aristocratic young lady introduced by Angela? Birds of a feather flocked together. With Angela's open style, it was hard for the aristocratic young ladies who got along with her to believe that they were so conservative. After seeing Meopal off, List soon received his smoke mission reward. The previous mission reward, the high-grade Chi secret manual Red Sun, Rising Fire. This high-grade Chi secret manual was, in fact, brought by Meopal. The Count's so-called exchange of secret manuals was a transaction with the Longtaro Castle. Don't bite off more than you can chew, List. Keep this high-grade Chi secret manual well. After a few years, when you're promoted to a Sky Knight, you can study it. At this stage, what you need to do is to seriously strengthen your foundation. That's right, I have always wanted to ask, when did you promote to an elite Earth Knight? In the study, the Count asked List alone. This secret could not be kept. It had probably been exposed during the Battle of Ironhoof Island. After all, his brave and fierce fighting style and powerful strength were not things that an ordinary Earth Knight could do. About a few months ago, List replied in a very low-key manner. After wiping out the Thorns Ridge, I obtained a lot of World of Warcraft meat, which is enough for me to practice Chi. Moreover, I feel that my talent is already unfolded. Maybe I can surpass everyone in one go and be the first to become a Sky Knight. The Count opened his mouth. After a long time, he said, "Your talent is indeed different from that of ordinary people. A 17-year-old elite Earth Knight, 1 year earlier than your brother. Maybe you really have hope to be the first to be promoted to a Sky Knight. But I hope that there can be more communication between us, father and son." List smiled awkwardly. Perhaps he was too cautious, and he was also full of vigilance towards the family of this body. In fact, he could have been a bit more willful. He could have put on an unreasonable attitude of "I am talented." He wanted to do something to remedy it. He said, "Maybe I was holding back my anger. When I was a child, I couldn't compare to my brother and sister. Now, I want to surpass them and prove myself to become a Sky Knight faster, to prove that my talent is not worse than theirs. I understand. Maybe I put too much pressure on you in the past. Not only did I not help you, but I even suppressed your talent." The Count, guided by List, began to look for the reason from himself. Fortunately, you were in theft to the Flower Town. The poor environment allowed you to unleash your talent. When I came to the Flower Town, I really felt enlightened. Chapter 422. List did not refute the Count's claim that the reason for his success was due to his and Melissa's noble bloodline. He had to give the other party some face. He changed the subject and said, "Father, what do you think about the sale of rubber? I tested the rubber you provided yesterday. It is indeed an extraordinary item. It is more impressive and more versatile than glutinous rice juice." The Count pondered a little, then said, "Tulip Castle gained a lot of supplies in the Battle of Ironhoof Island. It is not highly dependent on gold coins. I can buy a batch of rubber to relieve your pressure. Rubber is a specialty of Black Horse Island. The output is not high, and cutting rubber causes great damage to the rubber tree, so the price will not be cheap. Is it more expensive than glutinous rice? Glutinous rice is a kind of grain that can be eaten, but glutinous rice juice is more useful for watering the castle. The Marquis of Leather Island, Ramirez White Glutinous Rice, relied on glutinous rice to build his family. I think it must be more expensive than glutinous rice, because rubber can also be used to build a city. The quality of the city is no worse than glutinous rice juice. In terms of speed, hardness, adhesion, etc., it is slightly better than glutinous rice juice. But rubber can not only be used to build a city, but it can also be used to bond any object, build a ship, repair armor. Everything can be used. Liszt would not have taken out such a treasure if he was not really short of money. The Count looked at Liszt and asked puzzledly, "How many good things are hidden on your Black Horse Island?" "Well, there are indeed some specialties." Liszt responded faintly, "The most important thing is that the development work is done well. Take the rubber of the rubber tree, for example. Most people may only think of it as the sap that flows out of the tree and will not explore its use. In fact, he was very proud because there were too many specialties in the territory. In terms of crops, rubber with limitless possibilities, thorns with ironwood quality, fragrant coconuts that could be drunk directly, green tea trees that had yet to be planted on a large scale, smoke grass that could attract invisible dragons, as well as corn grass that could become corn cobs. In terms of potions, there was the black tulip, the symbol of the territory's flag, the flame mushroom and ice flame mushroom that were grown from the mushrooms, the fast-growing thorns potion, and the black nightshade that had just started to be cultivated on a large scale. In terms of breeding, the caterpillar and the mallard duck will become a major specialty. The black pearl giant clam is also a good specialty. Needless to say, the black blood horse is a precious specialty. The dragon cow is also a precious specialty. If the fertility problem can be solved, the blizzard beast should be regarded as a specialty. In terms of industry, the products of the Fire Dragon Brick Factory are specialties, such as slate culverts, bricks, and other fire products under development, such as ceramics, glass, cement, lime, etc., distilled liquor, flour brew, bath products, flour soap, and the future white paper, etc. In terms of delicacies, there was no need to mention them. The Flower Town had always been known as the source of Coral Island's delicacies. Countless delicacies began to spread from here. Other people yearned for a special product, but Liszt was distressed by the fact that he had too many special products. He couldn't develop them all, so he simply ignored many of them. So for now, Flower Town and Black Horse Island have so many special products, but he was still too poor to buy books. If you want to find good things, you first need the good things to actually exist. The Count took a deep breath and suppressed his jealousy of his son. "How many sprites do you have now?" "Well, this." Liszt pondered how to answer. The Count was dissatisfied. "Do you still need to hide it from me?" "I have 24 sprite worms and 2 sprites." "2 sprites?" "One is Ella. You have seen her, and the other is a useless mangrove sprite," he said modestly. Nami was not useless now. Raising mallard ducks was inseparable from Nami's ability. The Count froze for a moment. Then he sighed. "I remember when I was in theft, I only gave you 4 sprite worms. Later, because you found a black tulip, I rewarded you with a sprite worm. That is to say, you found 19 sprite worms yourself. There are also 2 sprites. The origin of sprite worms is rather complicated. Grandmother gave me 2 sprite worms in a potted plant. I contracted a barley worm outside the nameless castle of Main City. Father, you still remember the 6-headed sea serpent king, right? According to the records in a magic book, I watered 4 snake blood fruit worms with its blood." Liszt calculated. "Apart from these, there are not many sprite worms born in the territory, only 13, and Ella evolved from a thorn worm that you gave her. That is to say, the number of sprites bred by Flower Town and Black Horse Island itself is 13 sprite worms and 1 sprite. Do you think 13 is too little? Since I took over Coral Island, a total of more than 200 sprite worms have been born in 20 years of cultivation. More than a dozen sprite worms are born in a year." The Count tried to calm his emotions. "The point is, I have never found a wild sprite." Liszt wanted to say something to ease the atmosphere, but he was directly interrupted by the Count. "I used to think that Knight's Glory Favors was just an inspirational slogan. Now I believe that there is indeed a Knight's Glory, and it obviously favors you. You go back. Don't let down the Knight's Glory. I'll look forward to your future." He quickly sent Liszt away and did not even intend to discuss the pricing of the rubber. When the door was closed, the study fell into silence. The Count leaned his body completely against the back of the chair, his eyes gradually cast to an unknown place in space and time, and whispered, "Melissa, your most worried son has grown to a full-fledged wing and can fly at any time. It's just that this kid has too many ideas. Marquis Merlin wrote to me that he was promoted to an elite Earth Knight last year." The voice fell into an ethereal state. After a while, he raised his voice a little. "From an ordinary Earth Knight to an elite Earth Knight, it only took half a year. His territory has several kinds of potions, and he also takes in a wizard who specializes in making potions. Our son, I am afraid, will perform better than I did when I was young. In fact, I should have kept a low profile and not provoked the Count." Riding on the back of the Chocobo Loki, List shook his head and sighed as he recalled the scene of the Count on the verge of a crisis. "Forget it. Tomorrow I will have Gort come over and have a good discussion with Levis and Frank, and strive to negotiate a suitable price to ease the territory's finances." The powerful properties of the rubber were obvious to all. He was not afraid of not being able to sell it. After returning to the territory, before he was ready to inspect the cornfields, he received a report from the administrative office. The Surf Old Boar discovered that there was a very strange corn grass in his cornfield, with huge flower spikes growing out of the top of its head. Isaiah further explained, "Sir, we have no way to determine whether this corn grass is breeding corn grass worms or not. They look a bit abnormal, but there are too many of them, no less than 20 corn grass, all of which have huge flower spikes. It is unlikely that more than 20 sprite worms are being bred at the same time." Chapter 423. When he arrived at the cornfield, List saw the flowering corngrass. Sure enough, there was a large fluffy flower at the top of the one-man-tall corngrass. There was no sign of magic power in the field of vision of magic eyes. It was not a sprite worm, but a simple mutation of the corngrass. The Smoke Mission's hint is about the grain mutation. Is it referring to the flower at the top of the corngrass? List pondered. Looking at the mutation of the corngrass, it did not seem like it had evolved into corn. It seems like it has evolved into red sorghum. It had to be said that the corngrass before him was indeed very similar to sorghum. Only, the flower of the corngrass was yellow. Carefully protect the corngrass. Do not harvest them. Wait for them to mature, then we can determine what the situation is. After giving some instructions, List left the corngrass field. Whether the corngrass had mutated into corn sorghum or not, it would take time to verify. But he was a little disappointed. Sorghum was not a high-yielding crop. He was still looking forward to corn on the cob. But there was still hope. Wait for me to plan the industry transfer. There will be a new mutation of the corngrass waiting for me. Maybe it will be corn on the cob. Back at the castle, good news came immediately. One-Eyed Barton was responsible for delivering the baby, helping Fiery Dragon give birth to a healthy foal. It was a male foal with a black and red coat. It looked very spirited, even though it was still very weak and trembled while walking. "Master, this foal has a very good bloodline. It is great. It has its mother's quiet and quick-wittedness, as well as its father's strong physique. When it grows up, it will definitely become an outstanding warhorse." Barton said excitedly. "Very good." List was equally excited. He reached out and touched the foal hiding beside Fiery Dragon. Although he no longer needed such a horse with a mixed bloodline, warhorses were undoubtedly the wealth of aristocrats. There were no large-scale horse farms on the Coral Island, and a qualified warhorse could only be bought with several gold coins. However, it was worth celebrating that in the Battle of Iron Hoof Island, many knights switched to better horses. They could not take away the spoils of war, but no one could stop them from changing their equipment. It could be said that all of List's knight subordinates, be it the Earth Knight or the Squire Knight, had accumulated a set of fine steel suits and a strong warhorse from the battlefield. These pieces of equipment were not counted as battle achievements, but were the knight's own personal property. "Barton, raise it well. The other Mares are also about to give birth. You must take good care of these foals." List ordered. Barton said, "Master, you should arrange for a knight to come and domesticate these foals as soon as possible. Domesticate it now. It's too young to start training it when it's 2 or 3 years old. My lord, the best time to train a foal is when it is just born. The first few months of a foal's life are the most important for its growth. Before I was sold to the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, I started raising horses, and I saw that many knights of the continent liked to train newborn foals. Is that so? List was a little surprised. He had never heard of such a thing. For knights, with chi, they could tame any kind of fierce horse. Therefore, they rarely trained horses systematically. Just like how List tamed Black Dragon and Lightning, he had to ride it, subdue it, and then slowly get used to it. The relationship he established was not bad. However, Barton's opinion was also a reference. Domesticating a foal from a young age could make it more accustomed to interacting with humans. Therefore, he was going to give this foal to his only female follower, the little girl Emily, for her to be domesticated. "Sir, can I have this foal?" Emily, who had just returned from training in the Night Square, was called to the castle stable and asked excitedly. List nodded. "Of course, you can try to tame it. When it grows up, you will also be at the age where you can charge." He had been paying attention to Emily's training and discovered that she really was talented. Compared to Paris's sister Maggie, her progress was quite frightening. She had already left Maggie behind by a large margin, and this was under the circumstances where Paris was desperately helping her sister by providing her with a lot of meat and even some World of Warcraft meat. Therefore, List was looking forward to Emily's future more and more. Perhaps he could really train a female Sky Knight to be his follower. This thought was very cool. "Thank you, sir." Emily swears loyalty to Sir. Emily's young and tender face had a solemn expression after receiving her favorite foal. "I accept your loyalty, Emily," List said with a smile. Therefore, Emily didn't go home in the afternoon. Instead, she stayed in the stable to get close to the foal. She even gave the foal a nice name, Salad. There was nothing to see about a little girl training a horse. List returned to the castle and brewed a cup of tea. Just as he was about to read for a while to pass the time, Butler Carter knocked on the door and entered. "Master, Advisor Gord has brought the town's officials to report. Is today a report day?" List pulled out a schedule from the desk and glanced at it. The schedule was all drawn in thick ink. 6 to 6:30 in the morning, wake up, wash up. 6 to 7:30 in the morning, walk the dog, feed the bird, feed the horse. 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning, eat breakfast. 8 to 10 o'clock in the morning, practice fighting skills on Monday, 357. Practice archery on Tuesday, 446. 10 to 11:30 in the morning, train Dosin and the 8 little ones. 11 to 12:30 in the morning, eat lunch. 12:30 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, read, drink tea, digest. 1 to 1:30 in the afternoon, lunch break. 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon, read books on Monday, 357. Patrol the territory on Tuesday. Listen to officials' reports on work on Thursday. 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, play piano. 4 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, take pills and practice fighting energy. 6 to 7:30 in the afternoon, arrange freely, practice combat occasionally. 7:30 to 8:30 in the evening, eat dinner. 8:30 to 9:30 in the evening, watch the sea from the villa. 9:30 to 10:30 in the evening, read, drink tea, summarize the day. 10:30 to 6 o'clock the next morning, sleep. Most of the time, he would arrange his life according to this schedule. Of course, the time was not always fixed, and there were many unexpected interruptions. The number of days that he could strictly follow the schedule could be counted on one hand. He put the schedule back and said, "Then invite them into the study." "Yes, master." With the sound of footsteps, Gort and the other officials entered the study one by one and found chairs to sit down. Half an hour was enough for them to report on their respective responsibilities. In fact, it was not a big deal. After all, every dinner party would talk about government affairs. Chapter 424. Black Horse Island has become my territory and can be openly developed and constructed, while Flower Town is only a leased land. Although the Tulip family will not take it back, the industries that should be transferred still have to be transferred. This is to coordinate with future territorial planning. List has always been strategic. At present, there is only one new town planned for Black Horse Island, Port Town, but it is planned as a port city and will become the central city of Black Horse Island in the future. Of course, if Flower Town can develop, I don't mind building it into a trade city. If Flower Town only undertakes trade business, then there is no need to vigorously develop the planting industry here. Gort said, following List's tone. Isaiah added, the raw material production workshops should also be moved to Black Horse Island, and livestock, cattle, and horses should be moved to Black Horse Island. Zambrata said, considering the agricultural planning of Black Horse Island, Flower Town should still retain some of the daily needs of planting and breeding, and some basic foreign trade raw material production can save shipping costs by putting it in Flower Town. The former aristocrat, who is used to being pragmatic, is now much more pragmatic. Then, you give me a plan for the transfer of industries as soon as possible. I need to see it completed within 3 days. List gave a time requirement. In addition, I will appoint a new group of officials to work in Black Horse Island Port Town. You can choose to stay or go to Port Town. Immediately, he added, how you choose is up to you. I will not force you. Although he didn't force them, his followers with a bit of brains naturally knew that they would be put in an important position if they went to Port Town. Therefore, there was basically no hesitation and they were willing to go to Black Horse Island Port Town. In this case, Consultant Gort will step down as Flower Town's consultant and go to Black Horse Island to serve as a Port Town consultant. Financial Officer Blair will be transferred to Port Town as an administrative officer. Isaiah will continue to serve in Flower Town and take on the duties of an advisor. Zambrata will also stay in Flower Town, but can currently serve as a diplomat of Black Horse Island. Lords generally leave their advisors to aristocratic followers. In addition to List, only Gort was a Lord Knight in Flower Town. Therefore, he was transferred to Port Town as an advisor. No one could take on the role of Flower Town's advisor. Administrative Officer Isaiah could at most assume the responsibility of an advisor, but he could not directly act as an advisor. However, as long as he worked hard, sooner or later, List would reward him with the title of Lord Knight, completing the qualitative change from a commoner to a noble. It might take a long time. Compared to the title of nobility, due to military achievements, other titles were much more difficult. In the evening, List planned to read the magic books that he hadn't had the time to, but Paris called him over. Lord Viscount, I have some questions that I need your help with. Go ahead. List sat at the apple table under the apple tree, rocking the chair and enjoying the cool evening breeze that dispelled the heat of the day. A cup of clear green tea was placed on the table. My combat aura training has failed. I am unable to resist the corrosion of the light dragon magic in my body, so I followed your advice and began to consult Chris about magic. Paris said in a distressed tone, I accidentally discovered that my meditation is very successful, especially the light attribute magic. I have a very high affinity with it. But Chris only knows one type of light magic, flash. I have already learned it, and there is nothing else to learn. So you want me to help you find some light magic? Yes, among the people I know, only Lord Viscount has the ability to help me. Paris said frankly. List sat up, picked up the teacup, took a sip of the already cold tea, and said, light magic is indeed very difficult to find, but you can rest assured I will help you find some light magic casting methods as soon as possible. So, you are ready to change your profession to light magician? I hope I can succeed. I can vaguely feel that once I can use magic to control the light dragon magic in my body, then the corrosion of the light dragon magic in my body will be greatly reduced. Maybe I can live a little longer. This is really exciting news, Paris. List clenched his fist and said with a sincere expression, no matter what, I will help you change your profession to a light magician, let you overcome the corrosion of the light dragon magic, and have free time to enjoy life like a normal person. Thank you. Is there a need to say thank you between us? List smiled. Paris and List looked at each other, and then her face flew into a blush. She turned her head unnaturally. Then I will leave everything to Lord Viscount. I still have things to do. I will leave first. She had already left. List was still recalling the amorous moment when Paris turned her head. It has to be said that this female black dragon gang has a pleasing dynamic beauty. However, his feelings for Paris stopped at appreciation, and he did not deliberately pursue more than that. He respected each other's spiritual independence. Often like this, there will be some taste of a confidant. Probably can be called a yellow-faced confidant. As for how the future feelings will change, he is not very clear, and there is not much direction. In fact, apart from the clear goal of riding a dragon, he is quite confused about what he wants, especially in terms of feelings to go with the flow. He had a heart attack. Athena Salmon's confession made him so upset that he almost lost control of himself. Dunico Hyacinth gave him a passionate night, which made him impulsively decide to marry her. Renessa Golden Wheatgrass's tender kiss and late-night invitation made him waver between hesitation and regret. The beauty and flawlessness of the siren, Chi, made him have an infinite desire to protect and possess her. Paris's free and easy and occasional stupidity often made him smile at each other. However, none of these were the love that she had imagined. He didn't find the right person, nor did he meet the right person, nor did he go through life and death. Sometimes Liszt asked himself, will I fall in love with another person other than myself? There's no answer. He asked the servant to bring a pen and paper and an envelope of rosin, spread out the paper, and wrote a letter, the gist of which was, Elk Son, contact your magician friends and help me buy light magic casting plans. 10 gold coins for an ordinary light magic, and 40 gold coins for a light magic that can only be mastered by a great magician. Except for flash and invisibility, Paris has learned it. After writing the letter, he melted the rosin and poured it on the seal of the envelope. Before it solidified, he took out the newly engraved seal and stamped it hard. The serpentine mark of Liszt was engraved. He called the retainer knight Xavier and handed him the envelope. You go to Coral City to find Elk Son and pass this letter to him. Xavier, who is good at flattery, is now Liszt's #1 confidant among the retainer knight. He immediately said respectfully, Yes, my lord. The retainer knight left. Chapter 425. Speaking of water magicians, Liszt immediately thought that a Chi should also be promoted to Archmage. However, he still waited until the end of the banquet before going to the Seaview Villa. The crystal light was still burning. Tonight, the beautiful shell girl was reading under the light. Brother, Achi was already familiar with Liszt's footsteps. She didn't hide in the room, but waited for Liszt's arrival in a reserved and excited manner. You're here. I haven't seen you for a few days. Achi, you seem to have changed a little. Liszt always felt that the current Achi's temperament had changed a lot compared to the Achi he saw a few days ago. Achi has indeed changed. The siren happily turned a circle like a fairy under the moon. Her curvaceous and exquisite body made Liszt's mouth dry. Brother, guess what changes have happened to Chi, okay? Puberty? Of course, this was not possible. Liszt's eyes lit up. Achi, you've already become a water archmage? Yes. Achi's small face showed a touch of pride. She then stretched out her hand and slowly condensed a magic water wave shield, covering her. I just learned it 2 days ago, so I'm still not very proficient. These high-level spells are very difficult to cast, and it takes a long time to prepare. Let me try the water wave shield's defensive effect. Liszt couldn't wait to pull out the Sky Cutter Greatsword, aimed at Chi's water wave shield, and fiercely chopped. There was no battle energy attached, it was just a normal chop. When the blade touched the water wave shield, it only felt like chopping some kind of rootstock. Just a little bit, and then it suffered a huge blockage, unable to go even a little bit deeper. He raised the blade. The water wave shield was intact. I'm going to add battle energy. Achi, be careful. Okay. The fire attribute battle energy surged. Today, Liszt's potions were more and more smooth, and his battle energy was naturally more and more abundant. Flames rose on the Sky Cutter Greatsword, and then fiercely chopped at the water wave shield. Bang, a dull sound came from the point where the blade and the water wave like light came into contact. The The water wave shield shook violently and flickered, but it still firmly blocked List's heavy blow at close range. Putting away the sky-cutter greatsword, he nodded. The water wave shield's defensive effect is not bad. With the range of my attack just now, it would probably take dozens of slashes to break the water wave shield. If I were to unleash my strongest attack, I would need at least 5 or 6 attacks to break it. Very powerful. Of course, when faced with the charge of the Night Legion, the magician probably wouldn't be able to maintain it. However, if it was a duel or a hunt in World of Warcraft, a mage with water wave shield could easily crush his opponent. That is, if the mage had the time to equip water wave shield. Aqi deactivated her water wave shield and asked expectantly, "Big brother, is Aqi very powerful now?" "Of course it's very powerful, but you still lack advanced attack magic. You should learn Waterfall next." List stroked her blue hair. Aqi has already started learning Waterfall, but advanced magic is very difficult to learn. There are too many things to learn, and she can't cast it instantly. You're already very good. Usually, great mages can't even cast ordinary magic instantaneously. List comforted her, and then asked, "All right, Aqi, after you advance to Great Mage, what changes have happened to your body, to your magic power, to your spellcasting? Or what's the difference between Great Mages and mages?" The difference between Great Mages and mages had always been something that List was curious about. Now that Aqi had advanced, List could finally see the qualitative change, and as Aqi continued to talk about her experience, he became more and more clear on this point. Basically, mages relied on meditation to drive magic power, and then used magic power to form runes, runes to form magic arrays. Magic was the manifestation of magic power under the constraints of magic arrays. Magic apprentices only knew how to meditate, or use magic power to form the simplest runes, and complete the simplest magic arrays. Basic magic, water arrow spell, flying rock spell, fireball spell, wind blade spell, flash spell, and so on. They didn't even know that the magic they released was a magic array. Mages, on the other hand, could already master runes very well, and use the runes in their own body to form a magic array, thereby releasing higher-level magic. Ordinary magic, water arrow spell, rock spike, lighten spell, big fireball, and so on. This was a solidified understanding of magic. Great mages, on the other hand, had broken through the cognitive barrier of magic arrays and had a deep understanding of the relationship between magic arrays and magic runes, and extended to the essence of magic and magic power. After they understood this layer of relationship, they could use the changes in runes to drive magic arrays to produce more complex changes, evolving to release more powerful magic, advanced magic. Aqi, do you think I understand it correctly? List summarized what Aqi said and replied, "Basic magic is the prototype of a magic array. Ordinary magic is the static form of a magic array, and advanced magic is the dynamic form of a magic array." Prototype of a magic array, magic apprentice. Static magic array mage. Dynamic magic array, great mage. This was the magic that List understood, concise and comprehensive. Aqi thought for a moment and nodded. "Brother, your summary is very vivid, basically like this, but for the understanding of dynamic magic arrays, we should add one more. Aqi is a water mage, so the form of the advanced water magic, the form of the magic array, is like the flow of water. The dynamic form of the advanced water magic is the flow of water. Does that mean that the dynamic form of the advanced fire magic is the burning of flames? It's very possible. After understanding, List had roughly understood the principles of a mage's practice. He touched Aqi's hair and said, "The casting method of the advanced water magic is very difficult to find, and you may not have more advanced water magic to learn in a short period of time. However, you can start to study the practical application of magic arrays." "Brother, are you talking about making magic equipment and extracting magic potions?" "Yes." "Well, Aqi has to study hard and help brother make magic equipment and potions." Aqi shook her wrist, where there was a magic bracelet given by List, which could increase the range of spells. He had a cheese experience to share. After List went back, he immediately began to write a magic book. He named the book The Interaction Theory of Tri-State Magic Arrays and Reality. The title of the book was very lofty, but the content was very simple. It was a simple summary of the 3 stages of magic of a chi, and it compared the magic arrays of magic with the magic arrays of magic equipment, and extended some discussion on the application of magic arrays. There are not too many detailed theories, just a few general remarks. He planned to finish the book with a total of 30,000 words. This book was not intended to be published, and he only intended to give it to Chris Truth to read. In the future, when a mage faced the problem of advancing, they could also refer to this book. When I'm done, let a chi proofread the typos. I can't believe that I, a knight, actually wrote a magic book. Chapter 426. For 3 days, List was busy writing the book, 3-State Magic Array and Reality Interaction Theory. At the same time, the officials in the office had made an industry transfer plan. This plan determined that within a year, all Sprite Worm stocks will be gradually moved to Black Horse Island for protection. Magic ingredients such as tulip, thorns, flame mushroom, and black nightshade would also be gradually transferred to Black Horse Island for cultivation. Flower Town only retains ordinary crops and relies on compost to irrigate. As for the workshops, the Bone Smithing Shop, Magic Workshop, Crystal Workshop, Wine Workshop, and Soap Workshop, all of them would be relocated to the port town. Moreover, most of the craftsmen would also be relocated to the port town, handing over the Flower Town shops and workshops to apprentices. The plan was very detailed. List didn't have much to add. He obviously agreed with this plan and handed it over to the officials to implement. He was more concerned about the smoke mission. Mission completed. Reward: oily mutant corngrass. Huh. Seeing the word oily, List's eyes flashed with disappointment. Isn't it a corn cob, an oily mutant variety? Is it going to grow into soybean oil or sesame oil or compete with peanut oil? At present, the oil consumed in the castle is the oil squeezed from soybeans and peanuts. The taste of these 2 oils is acceptable to List, and he has no more picking needs. So, oily corngrass is not really a reward to be happy about. He turned to look at the new smoke mission. Mission: Resurrected Dragon Bones. Have you forgotten? Dry dragon bones need to be moisturized by magic. Only in this way can you be tempted. Please organize serfs to mine 10 tons of volcanic glass. Reward: agitation of the rubber worm. After reading it, he suddenly had a plan in mind. Volcanic glass, fire dragon bones. It seems that something good is going to be born. This mission must be completed quickly. But why is the reward for agitation of the rubber worm and not the corngrass worm? I always thought that the first 2 missions were chain missions of the corngrass worm. According to his understanding of the smoke mission, as long as the continuous rewards are homogeneous, it means that a chain mission is coming. Therefore, the first 2 corngrass mutation rewards made him look forward to whether the corngrass worm would evolve, just like Ella's evolution. But suddenly, the mission reward became the agitation of the rubber worm. What are the triplets doing? Were they preparing to evolve? That shouldn't be possible. They've only been born for half a year. So, why are they so restless? He could only wait until the smoke mission was completed to observe the rubber worm triplets. At the moment, they were living peacefully in the castle. Their mentality and actions were very calm, and there was nothing unusual. He felt a little disappointed. List went to check the cornfield for oily corngrass. However, compared to corn sorghum, oily corngrass was harder to find. After mobilizing the barley settlement's serfs to search for 2 days, they still couldn't find the oily corngrass they were expecting. He could only issue an order. In order to expand the corngrass's cultivation area, the harvesting of the corngrass is prohibited for a month. We will consider harvesting the corngrass only after the corngrass seeds have matured. Strictly speaking, the administrative office did not have any immediate plans to expand the planting of corngrass, but the officials were already used to List's arbitrary decisions from time to time. The corn grass was protected just like that. He could slowly search for oily corn grass and wait for it to appear. Time flew by. The Mares in the stables gave birth one after another, and the first batch of hybrid foals with black blood horse blood was born. On the other side, the figworm, blackberry worm, and pea worm had also been born. News from Black Horse Island said that the green tea worm had also been born. List went to Black Horse Island to preside over the volcanic glass mining while contracting the green tea worm. At this point, he officially owned 24 sprite worms. The newly contracted fig worm, blackberry worm, and pea worm have been brought to Black Horse Island and planted cordyceps in the agricultural area planned by Port Town, which will gradually be reclaimed into large tracts of farmland. Not only these sprite worms, the alfalfa cordyceps on the pastures outside the castle have also been moved to the center of the vast pastures of Black Horse Island. The 4 snake bloodfruit worms and their cordyceps have also been planted in the attached farmland of Port Town, and a huge snake blood orchard has been planned. The fragrant coconut tree cordyceps have also been migrated to the beach island of Black Horse Island. The fragrant coconut tree is distributed in a long strip on the beach of Flower Town, which limits the influence of the cordyceps, so List simply moved to Beach Island. There are many fragrant coconut trees on Beach Island, and the area is not large, just within the influence of the fragrant coconut tree cordyceps. In addition, most of the cordyceps need to wait for the late autumn harvest or the completion of the farmland on Black Horse Island before migrating. Sir, we have collected a large number of mangrove seedlings from Mangrove Island and are transporting them to the mouth of the Red River for planting. The mallard ducklings are also being fed, and the ducklings are growing well with green caterpillars as fodder. Blair, who has served as the Port Town's administrative officer, reported respectfully. The Red River is the largest river on Black Horse Island. The name is meaningless, but it is used to plant mangrove trees. It originates from the ice grass hill, passes through the boneyard, and eventually flows to the East Sea, forming a small estuarine delta filled with silt. Mangroves like to live in the estuarine mud, which can be developed into a new mangrove forest. Cultivate as soon as possible, and then breed green caterpillars. These insects are treasures. List said. Blair thought deeply. Yes, the green hair of the green caterpillar is more suitable for weaving blankets than the wool of the jumping antelope in Eagle Perch Mountain. It can be used as food in World of Warcraft and can be made into clothing. It is very valuable. The green hair of the green caterpillar, although not good-looking, is very suitable for making clothes, warm and comfortable. Blair reported again. It's just that there is a serious shortage of serfs in the port town. Sir, we have to continue to buy serfs, preferably 5 or even 10,000 at a time. The vast land of Black Horse Island is enough to digest these serfs. The night squad has been formed, and the serfs can't resist the rule. List did not answer, but asked, "How is rubber sales?" At present, we have traded with Tulip Castle, Broken Stone Castle, and Beer Castle. The price is twice that of glutinous rice. The response is very good, and it can barely make up for the gold coins that the territory needs to raise. But rubber production is still too slow. Even with the recovery of the rubber worms, the inventory is still shrinking, and soon we won't have enough for ourselves. Speaking of gold coins, List was upset. We'll talk about it after this period of time. It was clear that he had a lot of good things. The territory had great potential, and his future achievements were limitless. But he couldn't change his current predicament: poverty. Every time he came to Black Horse Island and looked at the empty future castle address, he would feel sad. He had thought of more than 500 design plans, but they could only be drawn on thick bast paper. From Black Horse Island, the gloomy mood caused by poverty had not yet recovered, and the butler Carter brought trouble. "Master, you are about to attend the wedding of Sir Meopal and the little princess. What do you want to choose as a gift? Are you going to prepare a gift according to the standards you set for young Master Levis's wedding? Mr. Carter, do you think it's feasible if I just send a few pieces of flour soap and a few bottles of flower wine as a gift?" Chapter 427. Flower soap and wine obviously could not be used as the main gifts. It would be too damaging to List's status. Now he was also a middle-level noble viscount of Black Horse Island. Moreover, the person who married him was his cousin and they had a good relationship. Special products, food, and resources. In this era, the gifts given to each other by the nobles were basically these three things. In addition to delicacies, Flower Town specialties are flower soap and flower wine. I must choose a lot of these three. As for resources, black pearls can be given a few small ones, jade, crystal, and mithril can be picked. The total value of such gifts should be able to express my heart. Aristocratic communication, especially between the great aristocrats, was very generous. List was very helpless, but he had to give, and he could not look shabby. He could only painfully take out a batch of resources. If I don't get married soon, I probably won't be able to take back these gifts. I don't seem to have too many opportunities to receive gifts. He was a bachelor with no marriage, no funeral, and no chance to have a birthday. At most, he would have a birthday. After thinking about it, he told the butler, "Mr. Carter, I will prepare a number of precious gifts myself. You can help me choose some auxiliary gifts, preferably some novel specialties, mainly gourmet." "Yes, master." The matter of the gift was roughly decided in this way. It would definitely cost money, but List was still very willing to spend this money. Not to mention that Meopal was very good to him. The gift from Marquis Merlin alone was worth it. He often read the Sword Saint's handbook and could recite it backwards. The value of a perfect Sword Saint's summary of his own cultivation experience was inestimable. He got up and went out, mounted Fire Dragon, who had recovered his body, and went to the magic workshop in Wheat Town. In the magic workshop, Chris was extracting magic potions while teaching Paris magic. "Viscount, how is the progress of your magic study? Paris has an excellent affinity for light magic. The only thing she lacks is a spellcasting scheme. Even so, she is already qualified to practice magic circles. Thank you, my lord, for finding me the interaction theory of tri-state magic circles and reality. It opened the door for me to become an archmage." "Really? Are you about to advance?" Crazy Truth said reservedly, "I'm already trying. As for when I'll succeed, I can't guarantee it." Chris's achievements in magic are outstanding. She's also an excellent teacher. I learned a lot of magic knowledge from her. "Lord Viscount, you know that I don't like to read books. Chris always told me magic knowledge like a story." Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude. This is indeed a very good method. Liz suddenly asked, "Chrissy, which area of advanced magic do you mainly focus on to advance to the level of an archmage?" Chris shook her head. "I haven't decided yet. At the moment, there are high-level spells for water, fire, earth, wind, and ice. They can all be used as breakthroughs. The magic brought by Chris and Elksun added up to 7 kinds of high-level magic: water, wave, shield, and waterfall, earth, rock, grenade, and rock wall, fire, ring of resistance, wind, tornado, and ice, eternal freeze. In fact, Paris relied on the light dragon magic to obtain the ability of light and shadow, which can be summed up as high-level light magic invisibility. It's just that this is her instinct, and there is no systematic casting plan." Paris suggested, "I think Chris can learn the eternal freeze. It's so hot now. Learn the eternal freeze and put a large block of ice in the magic workshop to prevent heat stroke and cool down. I can make ice cubes with my current ordinary freezing." Paris. Chris rejected Paris's suggestion. "I can make ice cream on my workbench. For a sorcerer who is not partial to other subjects, summer isn't too hard. Ice magic is very difficult. I should choose the easier advanced magic." Liz suggested, "I suggest choosing water or wind magic as a breakthrough. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire is an archipelago, and navigation is an important part of it. Wind and water advanced magic are very useful." "Then I'll choose the wind magic. If Lord Viscount takes me on the voyage, it can speed up the voyage." Chris quickly decided. She secretly glanced at the handsome list. Mages believe in the truth and have the awareness of sacrificing themselves for the truth. She did not intend to continue the product of mortal marriage, but was prepared to devote her limited life to infinite magic research. But it does not prevent her from working for an attractive lord. Often seeing the confident smile on his face is enough to comfort lonely nights. Whether man or woman, as long as they have hands, they can rely on themselves. So, after a brief chat with the two Lisses, Liss got down to business. Chris, how much of this batch of magic potions have you completed? I'm about to go to Red Crab Island to attend a wedding, and I need a batch of magic potions as backup. I've completed more than half, enough for Lord Viscount to use for a week. I'll leave in 3 days. Can you help me prepare enough for 2 weeks? Yes. Then I'll leave it to you. Chris smiled. You're too polite. Chris is willing to serve Lord Viscount at any time. 3 days later, List, who was ready, set off for Tulip Castle with his retainer knight. He rode the chocobo Loki and led the two blizzard beasts, Storm and Flame. Dosen, rock, waves, thunder, light, snow, and shadow stayed in Flower Town. He now consciously began to cultivate the discipline of the 8 little ones. They were intermediate world of Warcraft and must adapt to various environments and maintain absolute obedience to List. Only in this way could he command the Blizzard Beast squad at will and sweep the enemy on the battlefield of the night charge. No one knew yet that they were all intermediate world of Warcraft, but it would be known soon. At that time, List's name would once again shock everyone. He had 9 mid-level magical beasts as pets. He would be able to easily obtain military exploits, and the title of Count would almost be set in stone. As long as his strength could break through to the Sky Knight rank. According to the rules of the Grand Duchy, the Infef Count must be a Sky Knight, and if a Sky Knight was not produced in the 3rd generation, then the Count title would be stripped. The strength of an aristocrat was clearly linked to the title of an aristocrat. List, are you ready for my birthday present? In Tulip Castle, Levis asked after hugging him, I'm afraid that I won't be able to celebrate my birthday in Tulip Castle this time. I will be celebrating my birthday in Lontaro Castle or on the way back. His birthday was August 19th. Meople's wedding date was August 17th, only 2 days apart. Oh, I forgot. Since you can't hold a birthday party, then don't hold one. Next year, you can hold a grand birthday party. List suggested gloomily. Chapter 428. Every member of Tulip Castle was dispatched. The Count, Madame Marie, Levis, Lavera, List, and Lytton were dispatched. Only Madame Penelope, who was unwell, did not go. Lucky List, deliver this potted plant to me. Tell that handsome fellow, Meople, that my potted plant has given birth to 2 sprite worms. Before leaving, Madame Penelope solemnly said to List. She already knew that her potted plant had given birth to a fig sprite worm. Therefore, she was now doubly concerned about her potted plant and truly believed that it was a treasure. Of course, I believe that cousin will be delighted to obtain your potted plant. Maybe he can also get a sprite worm. Levis let the servant take the potted plant. He secretly released magic eyes to examine the potted plant, but there was no sign of magic power. Madame Penelope had a matter-of-fact attitude. It depends on his luck. If he is deeply favored by Knight's glory like you, he will certainly get a sprite worm. If he can't, then he can only blame himself for not being favored by Knight's glory, and not because my potted plant is not valuable enough. Liz smiled faintly. At this time, Lavera came over. I can't help but be jealous of you. Why do you always get luck that others don't have? I have carefully selected grandmother's potted plants, but I can't see any signs of a sprite worm being born in any of them. However, in your hands, they give birth to sprite worms one after another. You know, I'm favored by Knight's glory. I am a child of glory. He had now learned to brag shamelessly. Being high profile in the Coral Island was not a mistake. Lavera thought for a moment, and then sighed. I won't be surprised if you become a count one day. I won't be surprised either. You have really grown up. There's no longer a trace of your childhood self on you. There is. After all, I have always been handsome. The ship sailed on the sea. List would spend his time at the bow when he was bored. He would place a chair, prop up an umbrella, brew a cup of green tea, and place a plate of fruit, enjoying the cool sea breeze caressing his face. You really know how to enjoy yourself. The Count came out of the cabin and came to the deck, where he saw Liszt leaning back in his chair. He couldn't help but feel resentful. He always felt that his life was different from his son's. The weather is too hot, and the cabin is too stuffy. It's better to come out and enjoy the sea breeze. Liszt stood up and ordered his valet. "Thomas, bring a chair over." "Yes, master." "Tom, brew a cup of green tea for the Count." "Yes, master." Thomas quickly moved a chair for the Count to sit down, while Tom brewed a cup of green tea and placed it on the coffee table. Whether it was the coffee table or the chairs, they were all products of the woodworking workshop that Liszt had specially brought over. The Count's gaze fell behind Liszt. Storm and Flame were sleeping soundly. A descendant of Dosin? Yes, one is called Storm, and the other is called Flame. Do they follow Dosin or the Flying Dust Dog? The Count asked casually. Liszt simply replied, "They probably follow Dosin. It's not bad to raise a few more low-level World of Warcraft." "Well, what did you just say?" "Their bloodlines follow Dosin." The Count couldn't sit still. He immediately stood up, walked to the two blizzard beasts, and reached out to touch one of them. Storm was alert and immediately opened its eyes. When it saw the strange Count, it was about to get up and bite. But Liszt stopped it in time. "Storm, lie down and don't move." After a moment, the Count looked surprised. This is really the performance of intermediate World of Warcraft. Its magic dissipates very quickly, exceeding the range of low-level World of Warcraft. In this case, Dosin has 8 descendants. Doesn't it mean that there are 8 more intermediate World of Warcraft? You can almost say so, but whether it is Dosin or the 8 little ones, they are not powerful intermediate World of Warcraft, but it should not be difficult to demolish a castle. After a while, the Count returned to his chair and slowly said, "Liszt, do you know what this means?" "It means that once they grow up, even a Sky Knight can be besieged to death, or when orders of chivalry charge, they can block several orders of chivalry. It also means that I will probably be able to make brilliant achievements before I become a Sky Knight, and even meet the requirements of being a Count. In an ideal situation, it is possible. Maybe I will still be a Count at that time, and you will already have the opportunity to start a new family." "I have never thought of starting a new family. Starting a new family is nothing. It is just a change of name. This is the glory of nobility. The Golden Wheat family and the Golden Wheat family, although separated, are still very close." The Count said, "If you become a new Count, I am very willing to start a new family for you." Liszt still didn't quite understand what the people of this world knew about glory, so he let out a meaningless "oh." The Count did not know how to continue. With 9 intermediate World of Warcraft, as long as there were no accidents, it would not be difficult for such a force to become a Count, and becoming a Marquis was only a matter of time. He had always been proud of his talent, fighting from a Viscount to a Count, and even had hopes of becoming a Marquis. Although he hoped that each of his descendants would have greater achievements, he always knew that not to mention his daughter, but his 3 sons had the most hope of surpassing him. It was Lytton. This was also the reason why he had not piled up resources for Levis with all his might and become a Sky Knight. He had pinned his hopes on his youngest son, so because of a small mistake, he had directly deprived Lytton's tutor, Zambrata, of his title. He was looking forward to Lytton's future development. If Lytton was indeed talented, then he would not have to worry about Lytton. If Lytton was truly talented, then with the 2 generations of father and son working together, becoming a Marquis was absolutely certain. If Lytton's performance when he grew up was not as good as when he was a child, then it would not be too late to help Levis pile up potions and become a Sky Knight. So his understanding had always been, Levis could preserve what he had, and Lytton represented hope. As for Liszt, the older he grew, the more useless he became, from hope to disappointment, until finally he was indifferently in theft. He had already become the most failed artificial creation in the Count's heart. But it was such a son, who had been ignored by him, who now showed the momentum to surpass him. A 17-year-old elite Earth Knight was not outstanding, but Liszt became an Earth Knight after adulthood, and it only took him more than half a year to become an elite. This talent was scary enough. He was already so strong in terms of strength. What was even more incredible was his luck. The Count no longer wanted to give an example to prove how Liszt was favored by the glory of the night. He took a deep breath, picked up the teacup on the table, and took a sip of green tea. When the tea entered his mouth, he frowned. "What tea is this? It tastes so bitter?" Liszt explained. "This is green tea brewed from the leaves of the green tea tree. It does taste bitter when you drink it, but you can taste the fragrance and fragrance between your lips and teeth after a moment." "Is that so?" The Count carefully tasted the green tea. It was not only bitter, but there was a very novel taste behind the bitterness. Chapter 429. This chapter is a reward of 20,000 coins for Bitter Tree and will be updated tomorrow. Green tea is good. The more you drink, the more flavorful it is. Is this also a specialty of your territory? The Count drank a cup and asked someone to fill it up. Liszt replied, 3 green tea trees were found on Black Horse Island. I'm trying to expand the scale of planting. Fortunately, a green tea bug has been bred, which has reduced the difficulty of planting green tea trees a lot. The leaves of the green tea tree can be picked and soaked in water to drink. It needs to be fried to remove the green air of the tea leaves and let more nutrients in the tea leaves into the water, so that it has a different taste when soaked in water. It's really tasty. I like the taste. The Count looked at Liszt and gave him a look. Make a cup of green tea after a nap. It feels like it will greatly relieve the heat. When I go back, I will send a batch of tea leave for father to drink. How many cups can I make? The Count asked with a smile. Liszt did not show any embarrassment and replied seriously, morning tea, afternoon tea, evening tea, 3 cups of tea a day. Each cup can be brewed 3 times, but it is not good to drink too much green tea. So it is more appropriate to brew 2 cups a day, 6 times a day. He continued, a cup of 5 grams, 10 grams a day, 300 grams a month. Father, I will provide the tea leaves for your tea. When I develop the green tea planting industry, everyone in Tulip Castle will be able to drink green tea. Of course, at that time, he would have to pay for tea. While they were chatting, Levis also walked out of the cabin and joined the ranks of tea tasters. Fortunately, Liszt had brought a lot of tea leaves. However, Levis did not have the Count's serious tea tasting mind. After a few sips, he was still not used to it. What's so good about such bitter tea? First bitter, then sweet. Brother, you need to taste it carefully. I tasted it, but it is really bitter. You should add some milk, sugar, or a little minced meat and eggs to neutralize its taste. Levis suggested. Its taste has to be original in order to taste the charm that green tea brings. Brother, your life is too impetuous. Drinking tea requires patience. If you don't experience it, you'll never discover the sweetness behind the bitterness. It's just like life. If you attend too many banquets and socialize, you'll often neglect life itself. Oh my God, Liszt, have you become a bard? You actually taught me how to live. Sorry, my life is much more exciting than you can imagine. Besides, I don't like to drink this green tea. Levis shook his head. Liszt wasn't annoyed. It could only be said to be playing the lute to a cow. It just so happens that I'm also relieved. The green tea tree's current production of tea leaves is very low. It's already very difficult to supply my father and me. If you also like to drink tea, I really don't know how to choose. Subsequently, Liszt took the initiative to change the topic. Since my cousin is already married, when will my brother's wedding with Lulia Golden Wheat be held? At the beginning of the month in September, Levis and Lulia will be married before the expansion order is issued. The Count said. Liszt felt very helpless. It's like an appointment. Miopal will get married in August, while Levis will get married in September. Father, when will you worry about Lavera? He rarely showed concern for his sister. Lavera is too picky. I don't know what kind of aristocrat she wants to marry. It depends on whether she has a suitable choice or not. If she doesn't, in another 2 years, I will appoint a partner for her. As an aristocrat with a noble title, Lavera actually didn't have to worry about finding a partner. Therefore, Liszt only asked, He was more concerned about this year's expansion order. Is the Grand Duke still waiting for the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom to go to war with the Eagle Kingdom? He hasn't asked about the impact of the dragon-slaying incident in our country on the outside world. The Battle of Ironhoof Island had ended a month ago. The feedback from foreign countries should also be transmitted back to the Grand Duchy. The Count said, "The specific information is not very clear, but probing is inevitable. The Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom should send a delegation to visit the Blue Dragon Island and communicate with the Sapphire family. This year's expansion order can reflect the will of the Grand Duke, as well as the attitude of the various countries." When do you think the expansion order will be issued? No later than October at the latest. Oh, what's the matter? Do you plan to continue participating in this expansion order? Yes, I hope to continue participating. Although the strength of my territory is still very weak, my personal strength is not weak. I still have Dosin, who can at least take over the logistics. Most importantly, my territory is in urgent need of serfs. I hope to buy more serfs from the Eagle Kingdom. The Count nodded. All right, you will participate with me this year, and Levis will stay in Tulip Castle. Levis rushed to say, I also look forward to going to the battlefield, father. You need to accompany Rolia, and it is best to produce the fourth generation of the Tulip family as soon as possible to ensure that the family business can continue. Madame Penelope was the first generation, the Count was the second generation, Levis was the third generation, and his son was naturally the fourth generation. There was no need to be shy about this kind of thing, so Levis nodded and responded, I will work hard with Rolia to strive to produce a future heir as soon as possible. In addition, your relationship with your lovers and illegitimate children must be handled cleanly. Understand? The Count suddenly said. Oh my God, father, have you misunderstood? I do have a few acquaintances, but I have absolutely no illegitimate children. There's no need to explain it to me. You need to understand Rolia's identity. She is the daughter of a marquis, and it is impossible for her to tolerate your lovers and illegitimate children to take half a step into Tulip Castle. I understand. The private life of aristocrats was always accompanied by various lovers and illegitimate children. However, it was difficult to tolerate illegitimate children entering the family through marriage, especially if the woman was a powerful aristocratic family. Illegitimate children could only fall outside and fight against the unfairness of the world by themselves, drifting at sea for a day and night. They finally arrived at Red Crab Island. The deputy butler of Longtaro Castle, Rainieri, was already waiting at the port of Sea Crab City to welcome the Tulip family. By the time they arrived at Longtaro Castle, it was already the afternoon of August 15th, only a day and a half before Miopal's wedding. Lee William, Messiro, on the road outside Longtaro Castle, Messiro personally welcomed the Count and his party with great enthusiasm. Obviously, the flourishing Tulip family was a powerful foreign aid for the Taro family. Marquis Merlin's two followers of the Count were also in the welcoming party, Xianxia Broccoli and Durrani Hyacinth. After a lively exchange of pleasantries, List was just an unremarkable person in the crowd, exchanging pleasantries. He showed his demeanor and greeted everyone before standing to the side. He sized up Durrani Hyacinth, the father of Dunico Hyacinth. Obviously, Dunico inherited her excellent genes from her father. He was a handsome middle-aged man with a gentle and refined temperament. His style was completely different from the domineering Count Xianxia next to him. Messiro, Lee William, Xianxia, Durrani. Chapter 430. The gray-white walls of the Longtaro Castle were decorated with a large number of flowers, branches, and ribbons, making the magnificent castle look particularly holy. Two huge flags fluttered high above the castle's tallest steeple. On one side was the abstract Taro family's Longtaro flag, and on the other side was the Sapphire family's Sapphire Dragon flag, fluttering in the wind. This temporary hanging of the huge flag represented the marriage between the families. In the large area in front of the castle gate, countless servants were arranging the wedding scene. There were also teams of knights interspersed among them. There were even official-looking people involved, giving orders. These are the palace's professional servants and internal affairs officials, as well as the blue blood orders of Chivalry's Night. They not only take over the wedding process, but also do the security work because the Grand Duke will personally attend the wedding of the little princess and Miopol. Messiro Longtaro introduced. After listening, Lee William frowned, and his complexion quickly turned cold. It is understandable that the blue blood orders of chivalry will take over the security work, but why is the wedding process not carried out according to the Longtaro Castle's attitude? This is the Longtaro Castle marrying the mistress, even if it is the Grand Duke's daughter. Durant and Sark did not answer. Messiro was also a bit embarrassed. This is what father wants. He wants to give the little princess more respect. The Taro family should contribute more glory to the night. This is the respect for the Grand Duke and the little princess. Lee William was very dissatisfied with the palace's intervention in the Longtaro Castle's etiquette. I need to talk to Marquis Merlin. Messiro, is your father in the castle? I will take you to see father. Durant and Sark, help me greet the guests. After saying that, the two hurriedly entered the castle to find Marquis Merlin. Immediately, Madame Marie and Lytton followed the deputy butler to the guest lounge. These two people had a special identity. According to their identity, they were relatives of the Longtaro Castle, but there was no connection between them in terms of bloodline, so it was a bit awkward. The three siblings, Levis, Lavera, and List, did not regard the Longtaro Castle as someone else's home. They found a butler and asked, "Where is cousin Miopol?" Young Master Miopol went to Matsutake Castle. The eldest prince has already escorted the young princess to Matsutake Castle to wait for the wedding. The butler said, Miss Melinda's family will also accompany the young master to Pine Velvet Castle to take care of the young princess' daily needs. Matsutake Castle was another castle of the Taro family. Should we hurry over or stay in the Longtaro Castle? List asked. The Longtaro Castle is only a 2-hour horse ride from Matsutake Castle. It's better to rush there. I haven't seen what the little princess looks like yet, Lavera said excitedly. Levis shook his head. I have to stay here. Father is very dissatisfied with the wedding process of the Taro family being arranged by the palace. Maybe he will need my help later. You guys go. Send my regards to the eldest prince. Subsequently, List and Lavera walked together towards Matsutake Castle. When they arrived at Matsutake Castle, the sun was about to set. The entire Matsutake Castle was guarded by the Knight of the Blue Blood Orders of Chivalry, prohibiting outsiders from entering. The siblings waited outside for nearly 10 minutes. Miopol hurriedly came to greet them. Lavera, List, have you arrived? Why didn't you stay in the Longtaro Castle to rest? Why did you come to Juniper Castle? We heard that Aunt Melinda's family and cousin are here. Moreover, the eldest prince and the young princess have already moved into Matsutake Castle, so we came over. Lavera impatiently said, Where is the young princess? Cousin, quickly take me to see the young princess. I can't wait to see my future sister-in-law. Miopol smiled, Follow me. After entering Matsutake Castle, they naturally had to first pay respects to the eldest prince. Although List and Lavera were not vassals of the Sapphire family, they only needed to pledge allegiance to their father, Lee William. Your Royal Highness the eldest prince, it is a pleasure to see you again. List bowed in salute. He didn't pretend to be aloof, nor did he deliberately put on a humble attitude. The eldest prince clearly remembered List, the only new Viscount to be promoted in the Battle of Iron Hoof Island. List, I'm also very pleased to see you. After exchanging a few simple pleasantries, List and Lavera took their leave. The gap in status was very big, and they were not vassals. There really wasn't much to talk about. They followed Miopol to the second floor of the castle. In the piano room on the second floor, they saw Aunt Melinda and Cousin Russell's wife, Giagi Broccoli. Of course, there were also several young, eye-catching, and gorgeously dressed aristocratic ladies. Everyone is here. Please wait a moment to chat, Miopol said in a loud voice. This is my cousin, Earl Lee William's daughter, Baron Lavera Tulip of Falcon Town, and my cousin, Early William's second son, Viscount List Tulip of Black Horse Island. By the way, his Viscount title is based on military exploits. Being shadowed by a clan and being rewarded with military merits were two different concepts. One represented status, while the other represented potential. Although the identity of the second son was rather awkward, he was able to rely on his own efforts to obtain military achievements, so he was more eye-catching. Everyone favored the more powerful knight. When List entered the door, he felt the eyes of these noble ladies brighten when they saw him. When Meopel introduced him as a viscount due to his military merits, the eyes of the noble ladies lit up again. "I've heard of you, List, the new viscount promoted during the Battle of Ironhoof Island, and the one who raised an intermediate world of Warcraft," an aristocratic lady said quickly, her eyes constantly wandering over List's body. Although he wasn't wearing a gorgeous frack abbey and was only wearing a simple set of leather armor, his temperament was still outstanding. Seeing that this lady had already spoken, Meopel introduced her to Lavera and List. "This is Grisuti Maple, the younger sister of the Marquis of Maple City." Marquis of Maple City, Grindin Maple Leaf, was List's immediate superior during the Battle of Ironhoof Island. Grindinton was the husband of Grand Princess Annie Sapphire, so it was only natural that his sister, Grisuti, and the little princess would be best friends. "Nice to meet you, beautiful Miss Grisuti." List smiled, bowed, and spoke against his conscience. The Grisuti before him was not beautiful. At least, in List's eyes, she belonged to the ordinary category. Meopel continued with the introductions. "This is Sarinder Grandflower Huilon, the daughter of the Marquis of Quicksand City. She's already taken. This is Joanna." He introduced several ladies in succession, all of whom were the heirs of great aristocrats. Birds of a feather flocked together, and only the heirs of great aristocrats could act as best friends of the little princess. Finally, Meopel walked over to the beautiful woman sitting in front of the piano, held her hand, and solemnly introduced her. "Lavera, List, do you need me to introduce you? Angela Sapphire, my fiancée, the future mistress of Longtaro Castle, and your future sister-in-law." "Nice to meet you, Your Highness." The siblings smiled and saluted. Chapter 431. Lavera, List, hello. Angela Sapphire smiled with a slightly noble temperament, displaying a good ladylike attitude. She was about 21 years old, had fair skin, a beautiful appearance, and a well-developed figure. Although she could not be said to be very beautiful, she was in line with List's aesthetic standards. Moreover, her tone and demeanor were very much in line with her elegant demeanor. It was hard to believe that this was the rumored social butterfly known for her openness, or perhaps debauchery. Of course, it was wrong to judge a book by its cover. List did not reveal any of his thoughts. After greeting the numerous aristocratic young ladies, he sat next to Aunt Melinda, not wanting to become the center of the social circle. He did not open his mouth to speak, allowing his sister, Lavera, to quickly interact with the young ladies. He only had a simple chat with Meopel. His cousin was in a state of excitement, and his eyes kept glancing at Angela when he spoke. He actively inserted himself into the conversation. Soon, several aristocratic young ladies talked about the piano. Basically, this was the most common topic among aristocratic young ladies. At that time, Meopel expressed that his most appreciated piece was Euryale by the Waterside. This did not arouse any resonance. Instead, Sarando Plantagenet said, "My favorite piece is Die Sir Alice. Is simple and pure, like meeting someone you like for the first time, a faint joy and impulse. Do you know, this piano piece was promoted by me." Meopel took advantage of the situation and continued, "I sent it to Master Hannibal, and later, Master Hannibal's apprentice played it everywhere, making Die Sir Alice famous throughout the country. But guess where did this song come from?" "Where?" Sarando impatiently asked. "There's a touching love story, but let List tell everyone. The original piece and the revised piece all originated from him." Everyone's eyes instantly focused on List. This made Liszt speechless. He did not want to be in the limelight, and he did not want to have any memories with some young lady on this trip. Just to commemorate a pair of brother and sister who were in love but were forced to separate. I overheard it by chance and wrote it down, he answered briefly. Lavera said, Liszt has excellent piano talent. I heard him play a piece he composed himself. It was a piano piece about the city in the sky. Liszt, why don't you play this piece for us again? As she spoke, she deliberately blinked her eyes. She sent him a puzzled look, which probably said, there are so many noble ladies here. Hurry up and carry one back. Big sister can only help you this much. Liszt didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Soon after, Miopal, Grasuti, and Sarander heckled together, requesting him to play the piano piece they had composed. Liszt wanted to refuse, but in the end, even the little princess said, Liszt, I wonder if I will have the honor to hear you play this piece. Helpless, he could only walk to the piano and sit down. His fingers gently stroked the keys as he briefly told a story. I heard that there was a city in the sky, rich, peaceful, and happy. There was a child called Zeta who descended from the sky with a flying stone in hand, and a serf called Bath who wanted to prove the existence of the city in the sky. While adapting to the new piano, he finished the story. In order to prevent the city in the sky from falling into the hands of evil wizards, Zeta and Bath chanted an incantation to make the city in the sky collapse. Although the city in the sky was ultimately destroyed, it was enough to have a pursuit, a brave heart, and a beautiful process. This piece is called To Accompany You. After finishing the story, Liszt pressed the keys with both hands and began to play the piano piece that he was already very familiar with. The song was over. The aristocratic young ladies almost slapped their palms to death. So beautiful! I felt as if I was in the sky, flying along with the white clouds. It made me feel so tranquil and empty in my heart. I have fallen in love with this piano piece, just like how I fell in love with Die Alice. Even Miopal couldn't help but clap his hands in admiration. Liszt, if you were to become a pianist, you would definitely reach Master Shenier's achievements. It's just a momentary feeling that I wrote into a piano piece. But no matter how low-key he was, he had already become the focus of attention during the dinner at Matsutake Castle. The aristocratic young ladies would always pretend to chat with him and inadvertently ask him about all kinds of information. There was even no lack of suggestive words. For example, there were 3 young ladies who directly invited him to teach them how to play To Accompany You. Private teaching. One could well imagine what would happen in private. Liszt tactfully declined such an invitation on the grounds that he had no time. I admit that I am jealous of your talent, Liszt. If I could compose a song as moving as To Accompany You or Die Alice, I wouldn't need to spend so much effort to pursue Angela. She would have taken the initiative to throw herself into my arms. On the road, Miopal was still chattering incessantly. They took their leave after the banquet. There was still one day before the wedding, so it was not suitable to stay overnight in Matsutake Castle. Therefore, they had to return to Longtaro Castle to hide for the night. You could choose a young lady and bring her back to Longtaro Castle. I believe that the other party would not refuse. Lavera said, Sorry, sister. I am currently in a period of rising cultivation and do not want to be disturbed by these messy things. Liszt unbuttoned his collar. But sister, you should pay more attention to grasping your own opportunities. This time, there will certainly be a lot of aristocratic talents. You don't need to worry about my matters. I have my own criteria for choosing. Liszt shrugged his shoulders. It just so happened that he did not like to be a matchmaker. He took a stroll around Longtaro Castle. Compared to the quiet of his previous visits, the current Longtaro Castle was like a vegetable market. Countless servants were busy, shuttling back and forth, preparing the wedding scene for the day after tomorrow. He did not find the Count, but he found Levis. Brother, father went to look for grandfather. Do you know what they said? I saw that the palace servants and internal affairs officials have not been withdrawn. In fact, it is a misunderstanding. These servants and internal affairs officials are wedding gifts from the Grand Duke to the little princess. They will join Longtaro Castle to take care of the little princess and accept the restrictions of the Longtaro Castle's housekeeper. Levis shook his head. The Grand Duke dotes on the little princess too much. Perhaps. You also have to prepare. Me, you, Raleigh, and 3 other young aristocrats will form Meople's groomsmen group. Tomorrow, we need to participate in the wedding rehearsal, so we should rest early today. Do we need to wear strange clothes? Chapter 432. The entire day, Liszt didn't enjoy the happiness of close contact with the beautiful bridesmaids, as Levis had said. He was like a marionette, at the mercy of the internal affairs officials. I don't like being a groomsman. Cousin Raleigh complained in a low voice. He was wearing a light golden suit, a wreath of colorful flowers on his head, and a round and fluffy pleated collar around his neck, looking nondescript. +1, Liszt echoed. He was also wearing a nondescript groomsman outfit. It was unknown where the custom of wearing such a bizarre outfit came from. Even if he had an outstanding temperament and handsome appearance, he was still defeated by this suit. Mixed in with the group of groomsmen, only his handsome face was slightly prominent. Levis secretly yawned. I also regret agreeing to be Meople's groomsman. It's hot, tiring, and uncomfortable. I would rather cultivate chi until I'm exhausted than stand here and be a prop, especially wearing this ugly and stupid suit. I'm sweating all over. But there was no other way. This was the custom. The golden suit represented the glory of a knight. The fluffy pleated collar represented the nobility of an aristocrat, and the multicolored wreath represented the blessings of nature. Such a group of groomsmen could give the groom the greatest support and protect the groom's glory. Liszt glanced at the opposite side of the red carpet, where a group of bridesmaids dressed in white gowns stood. They didn't wear wreaths, but instead wore bird hats with feathers on them. Their gloved hands held dried flowers. White symbolized purity and flawlessness. Bird hats symbolized vigorous chi, and the dried flowers symbolized beauty and restraint. At first, this group of bridesmaids was indeed so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off them. But now, Liszt didn't know how many of these bridesmaids secretly rolled their eyes. Especially after the rehearsal, when they completely lost their postures of standing and sitting, they were very rough, not the slightest bit ladylike. In short, today was a painful rehearsal. The young ladies, who had paid attention to Liszt because of the piano piece, Accompany You, were half-dead tired from being bridesmaids and had no intention of provoking him. This allowed Liszt to sleep soundly for the night, and he welcomed the arrival of the wedding with full spirit. August 17th, morning. The groomsmen gathered and the wedding ceremony began. This was a set of complicated procedures. First, they had to assist the groom in heading to Matsutake Castle to welcome the bride. As the horses galloped, the 6 groomsmen in the carriage stripped down to their underpants. It was only when he arrived at Matsutake Castle that he hurriedly put on his strange pale gold robe, put on the lock and the garland. Under the guidance of the internal affairs officials, he followed the groom, Meople, who was dressed in a dazzling ceremonial robe, towards Tricholoma Matsutake Castle. Each of them held a strange potted plant in their hands. They were wheat, barley, glutinous rice, corn, peas, and taro. The first 5 grains symbolized a bountiful harvest, while the last type of taro symbolized a family's business. When they entered the castle, the 5 grains and the long taro were handed over to the bridesmaids. The male master handed over the family business to the female master to manage. The male master was in charge of the battle, while the female master was in charge of the castle. This was common knowledge. Of course, most of the male nobles were not only in charge of war, but also in charge of the castle. Women were only responsible for enjoying themselves. When Liszt handed over the glutinous rice in his hand to the bridesmaid, Joanna Moonlight Grass, he suddenly felt a caressing sensation on the back of his hand. It was the smiling Joanna who used her fingers to tap on the back of his hand. Moreover, she gave him an ambiguous look. She was the daughter of the Count of Moonlight Island, a direct follower of the Grand Duke. Her mother was a cousin of the Grand Duke, and she had the bloodline of the Sapphire family. She was 19 years old this year. Among the bridesmaids, her appearance was the most outstanding. She vaguely resembled Angela Sapphire's eyebrows. She was one of the socialites who wanted Liszt to teach piano music in private. He had thought that after a tiring day, she would not be in the mood to indulge in flights of fancy. He did not expect that after a night of resting and storing up energy, this aristocratic young lady would still give Liszt hints. Moreover, in broad daylight. Keep smiling. Liszt pretended not to notice the other party's small movements. With the little princess style, he really did not have any thoughts about her bosom friends. The process was still ongoing. After experiencing the blessing of grain exchange, horse feeding, armor, and other meaningful blessings, Angela Sapphire, the bride, finally walked out of the depths of the castle under the protection of the eldest prince. Compared to the dazzling gold groom, the bride was equally dazzling gold. The golden dress wrapped around her body, making her curves appear in all the right places. The faint white muslin on her chest made her deep ravine faintly discernible. Her hair was tied up, and she wore a laurel crown inlaid with gems and pearls. She wore heavy makeup and a lot of embellishments, making her look very beautiful and noble. She gave her hand to Meopal and boarded the carriage with Meopal's help. Then, Meopal mounted the horse and personally guarded the side of the carriage. The bridesmaids entered the different carriages one after another, while Liszt and the other groomsmen also mounted their horses. Then, the first prince and the others followed behind the bride's procession. From time to time, the blue blood orders of chivalry would issue unknown roars to strengthen the procession's momentum. 2.5 hours later, the procession returned to Longtaro Castle when the sun began to heat up. The groom helped the bride get off the carriage, while the groomsmen helped the bridesmaids get off the carriage. This time, Liszt found himself being molested again. When he helped Joanna unexpectedly pretended to slip and threw herself into his arms. In the process of standing up, he also used his hand to pinch Liszt's chest. "Your body is really sturdy." She stood on tiptoe and quickly whispered in Liszt's ear. This scene. It was impossible for Liszt to fall out and ruin his cousin's wedding. He could only smile, pretend that nothing had happened, and carry on with the rest of the process. Serving the bride and groom, receiving the spring washing, drinking a glass of wine, sharing a piece of wheat bread, the bride spinning, and the groom shooting. Finally, stepping into the decorated hall, the final marriage recognition ceremony was carried out. At this time, Liszt noticed that the entire hall was already filled with countless aristocrats and their wives. Sitting on the main seats of the hall was a middle-aged couple, Sapphire Grand Duke Andrew Sapphire and his wife, Sarit Plantagenet. The Grand Duke's complexion was good, but he was no longer releasing his dragon's might. Around him were Marquis Merlin, Messiro and his wife, the eldest prince and his wife, Glindeton and the eldest princess's wife, Lee William and his wife, as well as some aristocrats that Liszt had only greeted. The veteran Marquis only came to Glindeton. After all, he was the eldest princess's husband. The other marquises had all sent their heirs. In any case, it was glorious enough for the Grand Duke and his wife to come to this wedding. The wedding was presided over by an old aristocrat. He was an internal affairs official of the court and had once presided over the eldest prince's wedding. At this moment, his dim old eyes looked at the thick bast paper in his hand. He faced Meopal and read in a dry but sonorous voice. "Meopal Longtaro, if the master of the sea, the lord of all islands, the great Sapphire Grand Duke agrees, do you swear to marry Angela Sapphire?" "I promise." Meopal solemnly swore. The old aristocrat faced the little princess. "Angela Sapphire, if the master of the sea, the lord of all islands, the great Sapphire Grand Duke agrees, do you swear to marry Meopal Longtaro?" Angela solemnly swore. "I promise." Chapter 433. During the wedding. Meopal took off the sapphire ring he wore on the middle finger of his left hand, lifted Angela's right hand, and carefully put it on the ring finger of her right hand. He then said, "Friend, with this ring, you will understand that I belong to you, my eternal love." Angela similarly took off the sapphire ring on the middle finger of her right hand and put it on the ring finger of Meopal's left hand. She then said the same line, "Friend, with this ring, you will understand that I belong to you, my eternal love." The feudal lord witnessed the exchange of rings. The wedding was thus completed. Legally speaking, Meopal Longturo and Angela Sapphire had become a legal husband and wife, protected by the kingdom's laws. Immediately, the bride and groom were sent to change clothes. The best man and bridesmaids were finally relieved. They could take off their outlandish formal attire and change into more comfortable clothes. Liszt rushed to the bathroom almost immediately and took a bath. He then carefully changed into a suit of frac habillure. Frac habillure was actually very cumbersome, and wearing on a hot day was still torturous. But for formal banquets, aristocrats had to wear frac habillure, which was at least much more comfortable than the formal attire. After changing his clothes, he faced the crystal mirror, carefully tidied up the details, and had a servant comb his hair until not a single strand of hair was out of place. Only then did he leave the room to participate in the luncheon. He had a height of 188 meters, a tall and straight figure, a handsome face, an extraordinary temperament, and a pair of sapphire blue eyes that were as deep as the starry sky. Wherever Liszt went, there was a delightful scenery. He had already noticed that several daring aristocratic ladies had offered him autumn spinach. Of course, he did not respond, not even a smile. There was already a bridesmaid eyeing him covetously, and he did not want to provoke any more trouble. Indulgence would not bring him too much happiness. The banquet did not use a fixed dining format, nor did it have such a large space. Instead, it used a buffet format. Only Grand Dukes, Marquises, Counts, and greater aristocrats were qualified to sit in the dining hall on the second floor of the castle and enjoy an undisturbed lunch. Other lesser aristocrats or aristocratic heirs were shuttling back and forth around the buffet on the first floor of the hall and the garden. Liszt, who was already hungry, naturally did not stand on ceremony. He picked up his plate and casually picked out the food. Since most of the food in this world was not to his liking, he usually only chose nutritious food when attending banquets. Cultivating qi required a lot of nutrients. He picked a few pieces of World of Warcraft meat and placed them on his plate. A servant carrying a glass of wine walked over with a smile, asking Liszt if he wanted a glass of wine. However, Liszt just shook his head. He would never miss an opportunity to avoid drinking. "Hi." A woman greeted him from behind. Liszt sighed in his heart. Sure enough, being handsome was troublesome. There would always be moths flying at him. He turned and saw a woman of about 30 years of age, holding a glass of golden champagne. He had a dignified bearing and a noble temperament, but there was an unconcealable flirtatiousness in his eyes. "You're Liszt, right? The cousin of the bridegroom. I saw you when you were the best man. You were very cute." The woman said in a mature tone, "My name is Martha Yanping. My husband was the Count of Cape Island before he died." "Hello, Lady Martha. I heard from a few bridesmaids that you played a very moving piano piece accompanying you at Matsutake Castle. You don't know, but I'm very obsessed with the piano, so I couldn't help but take the liberty to get to know you. I can't miss a talented aristocratic pianist like you." Liszt replied, "I only play the piano as a hobby, but your talent is outstanding, as dazzling as your temperament. When I walked into the long corridor of the buffet, I saw and recognized you at first sight. There must be a problem with such compliments." Although Liszt liked to hear others praise him, he did not let down his guard. "I am just one of many young aristocrats, but you're the most special one for me." Martha said casually, "My husband left me only with my 3-year-old son. I live alone in Daisy Castle, and the piano is like a spiritual companion to me. I wonder if I can invite you to be my private piano teacher, just for a while. I'm afraid I don't have time. There's an elf in my castle. It is as obsessed with the piano as I am. Maybe you should come to the castle and take it away so that it can hear your beautiful piano sound every day. Liszt quickly understood the subtext of this sentence. Lady Martha wanted to use an elf to keep him for a while. If it was any young viscount, he would not be able to resist this temptation. Liszt was also excited. Even with the help of the smoke mission, he still only had 2 elves, and each elf was a treasure that could be passed down. He just needed to be kept for a while, and he didn't need to pay too much in exchange for an elf. Such a reward was almost irresistible. He looked at Martha yipping seriously. She was about 30 years old, not too old. Although her makeup was a bit thick, she had a good foundation. She was at least 7 out of 10. Her husband passed away, leaving only her 3-year-old son. The castle belonged to her alone, without the constraints of family members. This was simply the ideal lover standard for most of the fallen aristocrats. He could rely on Lady Martha's financial and material resources to help him obtain the aristocratic foundation and return to the daily life of the upper class. However, Liszt still refused. "I'm sorry, Lady Martha, I don't have time to teach piano." Lady Martha was not annoyed. She just smiled and left the sentence. "The door of my castle is always open to you. As long as you are willing to be my private piano teacher, you can write to Daisy Castle at any time. I will personally welcome you and let you experience the wonderful life in Daisy Castle." After that, she twisted her buttocks and turned away without hesitation. Looking at Lady Martha's back, Liszt inexplicably felt a kind of vanity rise in him. Piano and beauty. I can rely on my face and talent to live a luxurious life in the upper class. But I chose to stay in a remote, barren territory and farm day after day. He constantly worked hard and relied on the help of the smoke mission to cultivate the elf Ella. But as long as he played with a lady for a few months, he could easily get an elf. Thinking of this, he suddenly regretted it. I should have agreed. Before he could catch up and conclude the deal, there was a burst of cheers at the luncheon buffet. It turned out to be Meopal and Angela, who had changed into formal attire and came to attend the luncheon. The two held hands, each holding a glass of red wine, and accepted the blessings and toasts of the crowd. Liszt remembered that he also needed to toast the newlyweds, so he picked up a glass of red wine from the servant's tray and joined the blessings. "Cousin, Her Highness the Princess, that you're tuning in to the Eternal Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."